we dive into authentic conversations about ourselves and our community, exploring topics that uplift and inspire us, from personal growth to social change. So grab your teacup and get ready to join the conversation. Welcome to Tanisha Talks Tea, where we dive into authentic conversations about ourselves and our community, exploring topics that uplift and inspire us, from personal growth to social change. So grab your teacup and get ready to join the conversation.
That might. Joe Biden didn't do this. He didn't start a war with Iran. Barack Obama didn't do this. He didn't.
I think the next thing up to testify, people testifying are, okay, let's just jump right on into it, y'all. Thanks for sipping tea with Tanisha Talks Tea. We're up back on Diddy bullshit. Okay, everything Diddy trial tonight. Let's get it.
Please be advised that viewer discretion is strongly recommended. None of the content presented here has been exaggerated or taken out of context. These are the exact statements made by the prosecution team, defense team, Frank Piazza, and Brianna Bongolan on June 4th, 2025. Some words have been censored to comply with you is a voiced Piazza and Brianna Bongolan's testimony in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. Source: courtroom reporter at Inner City Press on X.com. All parties are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Listen at your own.
You work, legal audio and video. Have you testified before? Mostly criminal matters. I've also done some civil and depositions. Have you been qualified as an expert? 50 times. We moved to qualify Mr. Piazza as an expert. How many times have you worked on? 4 times. Does that impact your testimony? No. I do 75% defense work. Are you being paid? What is your hourly rate? $295. You analyzed cell phone videos and surveillance videos. Yes. Let me show you. What is a frame rate? Frame per second. It can cause a video to have more info per second. This cell phone video of a video, was shot on an iPhone 6, 30 frames a second. It was not edited or tampered with, I found. Did you reach a conclusion? They are accurate. And the frames is 22 frames, so it played faster. We had to account for that. How? We counted the frames and used software to correct the timing. Were the surveillance videos altered? No. Here, the video stream was corrupted. This has caused a distortion. The whole file or just these small pieces? The corruption exists in the video stream. There is a structure called a GOP, a group of pictures. We have predictive frames. You don't know this, but a static camera does not re-record a wall that doesn't move each second. It is repeated. Only what moves is recorded. Thank you. Play 55 seconds. Did you see pixelation? Yes. Does it represent manipulation? No. You can choose motion activity. The camera only turns on when there is motion, but it causes timestamp issues. Go back frame by frame. I want to point something out. This seems to be a collision of 2 issues. Look at the male sitting down. There appears to be a ghost of a person. The motion activity begins to sense that we have motion. Now there is a full figure in the frame. That file is corrupted. Did you make a compilation? Yes, your office requested it. They are edited to track the movement of individuals inside the events. Does it have different camera angles in it? Yes. How did you show the changes? Black screen. Is this the compilation? Yes. Play the first 30 seconds. What is happening? The male is Running down the hallway, he throws her down,
What did the man just do?
dragging the woman, holding a bag.
How? What is he holding?
It appears to be a cell phone, glowing.
Let's focus on what happens in the mirror. Play it. What happened?
The male picked up a small object, what appears to be a vase, and threw it across the room at the woman.
Continue playing. Who is emerging now?
The female, with a duffel, her luggage.
Now who?
The security person.
Now the man walks away. Holding what?
Appears to be a cell phone. He puts it to his ear.
You find these accurate?
Yes, and this was all the footage I had.
Let's turn to the videos labeled P, X201 to 210. Let me clarify. These are under seal. These were recovered from the Frank Black user on a device provided to the US by Mince Ventura. These are enhanced versions of original videos created in 2012, 2014. Mr. Piazza, what were you asked to do with the content?
Enhance the audio component.
We admitted these videos into evidence.
Native system.
How did they come to your possession?
They were exported and transcoded.
Who gave the surveillance video to you?
The U.S. Attorney's Office.
Who gave it to them?
I don't know.
Did you say it was from a cheap system?
I don't think I said that.
Let me show you notes. So you called it cheap?
I don't know when this document was created.
But you thought the system was cheap?
In a way.
Let me play you 10C103. There are 2 minutes not shown?
This is my corrected version, but there are a few issues that we cannot correct. The system is buffering some of that time, and some portions were motion activated.
Let's again play the male coming into the elevator bank at 11:02, and then the timestamps are jumping around.
It's constantly playing catch-up.
Play ahead. We're at 11:11:28. The female picks up the house phone. There's some sort of cut. Can you explain?
Can you back up and go frame by frame?
Sure. But is the male separated from her?
Yes, the bag drop triggered it.
A 10-second difference. Let's watch it again. Did we just jump about 10 seconds on the timestamp?
Yes, there is a 5-second offset between the two cameras. That's what you just showed.
Okay, the female picks up the phone and the male walks away. Start again, please. Is this his walking away?
Yes.
Play more. Did you see this translucent or ghost-like figure in the cell phone videos in the surveillance video?
The cell phone video was not high quality enough to capture it.
But it's not there.
It is not.
Mr. Piazza, thank you so much for coming. We have no further questions for you.
At this moment, the redirect began.
So they are 5 minutes off?
My notes told me there was a 5-minute, 55-second difference and another offset of 5 seconds.
Do these videos reliably and accurately depict what happened?
Yes.
No further questions. The government calls Brianna Bongalan. What else are you called?
Bana,
What do you work in?
fashion design.
What did Mr. Combs do to you?
Held me over a 17th story balcony.
Any after effects?
Night terrors. I wake up in my sleep.
Who is this?
It's Cassandra Ventura Cassie, my friend. I met her in 2013 at Young and Reckless, the streetwear company. Then at Diamond Designs.
How would you describe Cassie's relationship with Mr. Combs?
Volatile. I did not want to meet him right away. I had seen a black eye. She begged me to meet him.
Did you do design work for Mr. Combs?
A little.
Where did Mr. Combs live?
I think in like Beverly Hills.
At this moment, the defense objected on grounds of speculation, and the judge sustained it.
Do you know the name of the street?
Mapleton. 200 South Mapleton.
What did you do with Cassie?
And we go shopping. We'd hang out with Deontay and others.
Is this a photo of you and Cassie shopping?
Yes, in April 2016. Puff texted Cassie, asked where she was, sent a list where we'd been.
Had you or Cassie told Mr. Combs where you were?
No.
How did it make you feel?
At this moment, the defense objected, but was overruled.
Like, oh my God, he knows where we've been.
Where would you sleep at Cassie's?
Couch or balcony.
Did Mr. Combs come over?
Yes, he banged on the door and came in.
Do you know how?
I don't know. He was upset. He threw a knife in her direction, and she threw it back. He left swiftly.
Were you doing drugs?
I don't remember.
Did you call the police?
No.
Why not?
I heard.
Did you see injuries on Cassie?
She showed me on FaceTime before makeup for the perfect match.
What did she say?
She was quiet. We were at a party at the Blind Dragon, a karaoke bar in West Hollywood. Then we went to Cassie's house to help her pack. Deontay was there. Puff came.
Are you under subpoena?
Yes. I won't get in trouble if I am truthful.
Did Mr. Combs provide you drugs?
Yes. One was called G. I am not an avid user. Ketamine, marijuana, cocaine.
How often did you get drugs for Cassie?
Often. Those oxy pills.
Did she pay you?
Yes.
Did you get drugs for Mr. Combs?
Yes, once. Cocaine.
Did you sell to others?
Yes, sometimes.
Did you try with Cassie to stop?
Yes, we try to cook, but there were a lot of drugs around.
Has Mr. Combs ever threatened you?
Yes.
Let me show you a photo from April 2016. Who is in it?
This photographer who goes by the name Bad Boy, with an I. We thought it was cool that was his name. We thought we'd made some art. Puff came up close to my face and said, "I am the devil, and I could kill you."
Were you taking that day?
Probably cocaine.
Did you continue to see Mr. Combs after that?
Yes.
Why?
I don't know.
Did you tell the government about this threat in your first meeting?
No.
Why?
At this moment, the defense objected and was sustained.
What happened on the balcony?
I was there.
Who was there?
Cassie and my ex-girlfriend at the time.
What were you doing?
Sleeping on the couch with my ex.
Doing drugs?
I don't recall.
What did you do when Mr. Combs arrived?
I took my ex-girlfriend to the bathroom. I went shh.
Why?
I didn't want to expose her to what I saw.
Then?
Went out on the balcony and neither lit the blunt or was about to. Mr. Combs came up behind me on the balcony. He lifted me up and put me on the railing.
Can you show us how he held you?
To myself?
Show us. How much did you weigh?
I can't say because of the drugs, but about 115 pounds.
What did Mr. Combs scream at you?
He yelled, "You know what the fuck you did?" I said back, "I don't know what the fuck I did."
How long did he hold you there?
How long it takes to say that multiple times? You know what the fuck you did.
What next?
He threw me on the balcony furniture.
Were you injured?
I didn't know at first.
What did Cassie say?
Along the lines of, "Did you just hang her over the balcony?" Then I heard, "Her girlfriend is in the house." He left and I left. I wanted to take a shower. I felt disgusted. I saw a huge bruise on my leg with like a piercing in the middle and back and neck pain.
Is this photo a fair and accurate representation of your leg?
Yes, I called one of my managers and they said, "If you're scared of anything else, just go to a chiropractor."
Did you tell the chiropractor who'd done it to you?
No, they asked, but I just paid and took the neck brace.
Is the neck brace in this photo of you?
Yes.
Did you ever talk with Mr. Combs about this?
I said, "I don't want any problems with you." He didn't say anything.
When did you last see them?
January 2nd, 2018.
How do you remember?
I tattooed the date on myself.
Why?
It's the day I decided to get sober. It was a New Year's thing in Miami at the one hotel. Puff, Cassie and I did 8 hours of ketamine together.
Are you aware Cassie included the balcony incident in her complaint?
Yes, I told her she had facts wrong. It wasn't in a hotel, and Tiffany.
Have you talked with Cassie about your testimony or hers?
No, I have nightmares. I scream.
When the last time you had nightmares?
The other day.
Have you?
Yes, my first lawyer, hired in January 2024.
Did you mention everything in your first meeting with us?
No,
Did your first lawyer send demand letters to Mr. Combs?
multiple, and the demand was high. He picked it.
Did you approve the letters?
No, they were incorrect. I let him go.
Who?
Tyrone Blackburn.
Did people reach out to you?
Tiffany, Cassie, the producer Rob Holliday.
Was he friends with Mr. Combs?
Yes,
At this moment, the defense asked for a sidebar. Then they continued.
Who did Mr. Holliday say he was calling for?
Puff.
What offer was he authorized to offer?
At this moment, the defense objected and it was sustained.
How did you feel during the call?
I declined the offer.
At this moment, the defense said non-responsive. Then the judge said sustained. Move on unless you are prepared to ask some of the foundational questions we discussed at sidebar.
Did you talk with him again?
No,
At this moment, the defense asked for a sidebar, and there was an objection, which was sustained.
Your lawsuit, did you write it?
no.
How much is being requested?
$10 million.
Nothing further.
At this moment, the cross-examination began.
I need to ask you some questions. You have immunity as long as what you say today is true, right?
Yes,
Who decides if you're lying?
the prosecutors.
Ms. Bongolan, you were a graphic designer.
Yes,
You and Cassie would work on designs, including at her house. True?
yes.
All right. You were focused on a t-shirt design.
There were a lot of things.
She asked you to come over.
Yes,
You suggested Cassie do a photo shoot in the pool in just a t-shirt.
that wasn't the first idea. But yeah,
You began to feel comfortable with her.
sounds around it.
You spent the night.
Yes,
You went to parties with Cassie.
not going to parties. We partied.
Okay, you did a lot of drugs with Cassie.
Yes,
How did marijuana make you feel?
sometimes hungry.
How does ecstasy make you feel?
Uplifted.
How about G,
Like the negative parts of alcohol.
perk,
I threw up.
Cocoa Puff?
Blunt with weed and cocaine.
You would agree with me that you and Cassie had a serious drug problem.
Yes,
You sold drugs to Cassie a lot.
yes,
You got her hundreds of pills.
yes. They were hers.
Name the drug dealers.
I don't know if I can.
Let's refresh. In this job, your clothing line did not work out due to the skater mentality at Diamond Supply Company.
I believe they saw the vision, but whatever.
You believed you were one of Cassie's best friends,
Yes.
but you didn't meet Mr. Combs for a year. You met in 2016, first time at a dinner at his house.
Yes.
He was standoffish with you.
Yes.
Did you talk with Deontay Nash after his testimony?
Yes.
But not about his testimony, right?
We know what's going on.
You don't need to talk because you know
At this moment, the prosecution objected, and it was sustained.
you hired Tyrone Blackburn to sue Mr. Combs.
It was to seek justice.
Your definition of justice is to sue Mr. Combs.
Can you rephrase that?
Suing for money?
Yes.
November 2023? You are aware Cassie filed a lawsuit. You were working together then.
Yes.
At this moment, the prosecution asked for a sidebar, and then they continued.
Cassie included the balcony incident in her lawsuit.
True.
Cassie said, this happened at a hotel, true?
She didn't say it like that.
You said, your apartment, it has a balcony.
I didn't say it like that.
Cassie told you she never saw you over a balcony?
No, ma'am. I don't remember.
All right, right here. Read this page, then look up. You had these conversations?
I don't know.
About this alleged balcony incident, you and Ms. Ventura talked about the date, the place, who was there.
True.
In 2015 and 2016, you didn't see any signs of violence, true?
I don't know the exact year.
The birthday party. What were you doing?
I don't remember.
Alleged knife throwing incident. He just walked in and threw a knife.
I'm not sure.
Are you telling the truth?
At this moment, the prosecution objected, and it was sustained.
Didn't you tell the government they would get in knife fights? Plural?
I don't remember.
Let me show you.
I was suggesting where the knife came from.
Because it makes no sense. You're saying you don't know how he got in to throw the knife, but once he's left, you're no longer worried.
I don't remember how I felt.
You say at a photo shoot, Mr. Combs said, I could kill you?
Yes.
But at first, you told the government it was at a party.
I don't know.
Your first demand letter said Mr. Combs said I could kill you while he hung you over the balcony?
He did both, just not at the same time.
At this moment, they had a sidebar, then continued.
You met the government January 18th, 2024, didn't mention the I could kill you, but put it in your subsequent demand letter?
Yes, in a demand letter. I don't know when.
Read this,
The whole thing.
this paragraph.
Then the judge said, as much as you want.
Thanks. Okay.
You didn't tell the government about I could kill you, and Tyrone was there?
Yes, I let him go.
Drugs were expensive, right?
They are expensive.
Now,
I don't know.
did you run out of money for drugs?
I don't remember that.
You and Cassie had a drug partnership?
Yes.
Cassie would pay for the drugs, you'd go buy them?
Yes.
Did you meet the government on May 25th, 2025, and June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th?
Yeah, that's not long ago.
That's today.
I'm not good with dates.
The balcony incident. Didn't you tell the government there was a party in the apartment?
I don't remember that.
You told the government your girlfriend was in the bathroom, not that you took her in there.
My ex.
Your complaint says you were smoking a cigarette on the balcony, not weed.
I don't remember.
Different things.
Yes.
You told the government you recalled he was charging at you?
Don't remember.
Didn't you first say Mr. Combs sexually assaulted you on the balcony?
I showed them where his hands were.
You said he gripped your breasts, or your lawyers said it.
My lawyers said that.
Didn't you tell these prosecutors 2 days ago that you couldn't remember what happened out on that balcony?
I don't remember.
Do you remember what drugs you were on?
No.
Didn't you tell the government you took Molly, G, and cocaine?
That's a lot of drugs.
Didn't you take them all?
Not all on that night.
And that was the end of the day in the Diddy trial. What do you think about the testimonies today? Who do you think did better, the prosecution or the defense? Let us know in the comments down below, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Oh my goodness. Okay, that was testimony from Brianna. Can't really pronounce the last name or whatever, but she also gave some riveting, explosive testimony. Y'all drop some teacups down in the chat. We are back up again with a full recap of the Diddy trial. Where are we? We are listening to voiceovers of the actual testimonies of the recent new witnesses brought forth. Is Diddy in the right court, y'all? Y'all comment down in the chat and let me know whether or not, you think he should be in the feds or in the state court. So We're going to move right on next to full Jane Doe testimony against Diddy. Let's get it, y'all. Y'all are sipping tea with Tanisha. Let's sip tea. Alrighty.
Before we begin, please be advised that viewer discretion is strongly recommended. None of the content presented here has been exaggerated or taken out of context.
So now we're being brought up to June 5th, okay? June 5th. With the Brianna girl we just heard from, Enrique Santos and Jane Doe. Let's get it.
Are the exact statements made by the prosecution team, defense team, Brianna Bongolan, Enrique Santos, and Jane Doe. On June 5th, 2025, some words have been censored to comply with YouTube's guidelines. What you're about to hear is a voiced-over reading of Brianna Bongolan, Enrique Santos, and Jane Doe's testimony in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. Source: courtroom reporter at Inner City Press on X.com. All parties are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Listen at your own discretion.
What is this a photo of?
Drugs.
You sent this photo to Cassie?
Yes.
Now DX1287. What's this?
Some type of drugs.
How many types?
I can't tell.
You're still doing drugs with Cassie on May 31st, 2016, right?
Yes.
Just before this, Mr. Combs threatened your life?
Yes.
You weren't scared to continue dealing with Cassie?
I guess not.
Okay. You said Mr. Combs gripped your breast?
At this moment, the prosecution objected, and the judge told the defense to ask again.
Mr. Tyrone said Mr. Combs gripped your breast. True?
Some of the things he wrote were not true.
You fired him and hired new civil lawyers and they drafted a lawsuit. You reviewed it?
To the best of my ability.
Look at this document, only for the parties. Ma'am, isn't it true that your lawyer, Mr. Tyrone, alleged for the first time a certain kind of misconduct, and although you knew it was untrue, you began repeating it?
Can you rephrase that?
Mr. Tyrone alleged that Mr. Combs engaged in misconduct.
I can't speak for him.
You speak for you. You kept repeating the lie about the gripping your breast?
Can you restate it?
Okay. You continued accusing Mr. Combs of misconduct, even though you knew it was not true.
It's really hard to commit to the whole sentence.
You knew that was the only way you could sue?
I don't recall.
You say you were screaming. Are you aware of anyone else calling the police?
I don't think so.
You didn't go to an urgent care?
I didn't.
You didn't tell the chiropractor what happened?
No.
Why not?
I was scared.
Okay, the girlfriend, what's her name?
Sarah or Friday.
Full name, please.
I think Sarah Siddell, SP, something like that. It was a while ago.
You told the government she was Friday and that she wouldn't know anything?
I'm not sure.
On October 4th, 2016, didn't you attend Mr. Combs' concert?
I don't remember the date, but yes, I went.
May we read the texts? You read Bana and I'll read Cass.
I don't know what I wrote.
Coolio, what time?
Luvia, thank you for yesterday.
You're asking Cass if Puff would like a sweatshirt, 2 weeks after you allege he held you over a balcony?
We were trying to be cool.
Repeat that.
We had the FaceTime call, and we were trying to be cool.
Isn't it true that you continued to see Mr. Combs and Ms. Ventura because Mr. Combs did not cause you those injuries?
Part of that statement is true, and part I can't agree with.
You see your phone number on this?
Yes.
This text is from October 15th, 2016, from Mr. Combs to you.
Yes.
Mr. Combs wrote, if you're going to do K with her, at least have her back. Do you remember receiving this?
Yes.
You remember the Bad Boy reunion tour. You started on it but didn't complete it.
Maybe 1 or 2.
September 25th, 2016. The tour was at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. True.
I'm not aware. Not so sure on dates.
He was on stage with Lil' Kim.
I don't know.
And at the Harlem Salute to Achievement?
At this moment, the prosecution objected, and then they had a sidebar.
Is this Trump International Hotel stay of Frank Black include September 26th, 2016, in-room breakfast for $231? You see?
Yes.
You agree, one person can't be in 2 places at the same time?
Hard to say.
Told the jurors Mr. Combs injured you in L.A. on September 26th, 2016, correct?
At this moment, the prosecution asked for a sidebar, then they continued.
Mr. Combs did not cause you the injuries in the photo you provided with metadata saying September 26th, 2016.
I can't agree with that.
A person can't be in LA and NY at the same time?
My answer is the same.
No further questions.
At this moment, the redirect began.
Did you ever review the notes taken at your interviews?
No,
Did you give Cassie permission to put your name in her complaint?
no. After she filed, I hit her up to tell her of mistakes. Tiffany wasn't there.
When you filed your lawsuit, was its report of the balcony the same or different from Cassie's?
Different.
Is what you said today your best recollection?
Yes?
The demand letters of your first lawyer, did you write them?
No?
The demand letter that said Mr. Combs squeezed your breast so hard you had bruises, had you said that?
No, ma'am.
Do you demonstrate with hand motions? Please do.
He started at my armpit.
Were they on your breast?
Yes.
Do you yourself know the exact date of the balcony incident?
No.
Why not?
It was a while ago.
Any doubt Mr. Combs held you off the balcony?
No doubt.
Nothing further.
At this moment, the recross began.
In a follow-up interview with the government, you gave them pictures of your leg injury with metadata. True?
I gave them pictures.
When you sued Mr. Combs, you weren't rich.
I was not.
You saw this as a chance to make $10 million. True?
The judge would review.
It means a lot to you to become a millionaire and soon, right?
No. I am here for justice.
Meaning money, nothing further.
Here is the conversation in between, getting the next witness on the stand.
Thank you, Ms. Bongalan. Is there an exhibit? Publish it.
We object under Rule 106.
So, after the break, jurors, there'll be food for you in there. All rise. So, about these text message chains,
These are screenshots of messages between Ms. Ventura and Christina Coram. It first involved Ms. Ventura saying her phone was thrown off the balcony. Then, about Ms. Bongalan. The defense wants more in. They want in Ms. Coram's message that he says that didn't happen. But that's self-serving hearsay with no exception.
the allegedly completing statements are not admissible. Mr. Agnifilo, your client was looking at jurors and nodding vigorously. This can't continue, or I will give a limiting instruction you won't like, or other measures, including barring your client from the courtroom. Do you understand?
Yes.
At this moment, the next witness took the stand.
I have worked at the SDNY prosecutor's office for 17 years. I've done 3,000 cell phone extractions.
These 3 iPhones, whose were they?
Cassandra Ventura, one had a changed IMEI number. It had been repaired.
If a user takes a screenshot, what is the metadata?
Creation date, modified data, where it is stored.
This exhibit, is this another extraction?
Yes.
No further questions.
Some deleted messages remain?
Yes.
The September 30th is the capture date of the screenshot, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
First, some sealed exhibits under the pseudonym order and because explicit. 1503. At this time, we call Jane. Where did you grow up?
California,
Your level of college?
junior college, then modeling.
With whom did you have a relationship 2021 to 2024?
Sean Combs,
What did you call him?
Sean, baby, Ernie.
Why Ernie?
We did that. I was Bert.
When did you meet him?
On a girls' trip to Miami in 2020. He was dating my friend. He was really funny and nice. We went on a yacht, partying. He gave me his cell phone number.
Did you see drugs?
Yes, that first night. One of my friends said she wanted I guess.
I don't want you to guess. Where did you go?
The studio in 2-Star. A man pulled out pink powder. My girlfriend was upset. She thought I was getting with Sean. So we left abruptly.
The next day.
Drinks by the pool. Then movie night in the theater in his residence. He texted me, "I'd like to take you out." I replied that I felt complicated.
Where were you living then?
The East Coast.
Did Mr. Combs contact you?
Yes, he was flirtatious. He invited me to Miami.
Read these texts. What does he say?
He says, "Call me Ernie."
Who was pursuing who?
He was pursuing me, but I was being considerate of my girlfriend. But she got engaged and moved overseas, so I felt I could do this Sean thing.
Had she been seeing Sean and her fiancé at the same time?
Yes, I went to Miami in January 2021. He got me a hotel room,
Where did you have your first date?
the hotel balcony.
How long did your first date last?
5 days.
What did you tell him about your past?
I dated someone he knew. Also, my child's father didn't get along with Sean. He said he didn't mind.
How many children do you have?
1.
What did Sean say about his relationships?
Only my friend. He said it wasn't a real relationship.
What did you do?
We made a lot of love. We walked on the beach. Later, we went on a proper first date. Dressed up, a restaurant. I was head over heels.
How did you stay in contact?
Texts,
Did you travel with him?
Turks, and Caicos. I was excited. I'd never been to Turks.
Who else went in February 2021?
Christina Coram, the chef, the butler, at one point a barber.
How long did you stay?
9 days in Turks, 6 days in the Bahamas.
We're going to play a video.
I took the video,
What do we see?
the villa, the vibe,
What did you tell Sean?
that I was a single mother. On social media, I called myself a content creator,
What was your work?
advertising brands on my social media.
What did he give you?
A love bracelet. He said he'd give me money because he'd taken me many days away. I really appreciated that.
How much?
$10,000.
What drugs had you used before?
Ecstasy, twice, 2014 and 2015.
You used it in Turks. Who suggested it?
Sean, like 10 times. In the pool, he gave me a pill, said it would be more fun. I was walking down the beach with him and I fell. I think I was screaming too. They put me in the shower. KK did.
Did you take another ecstasy pill?
Yes, but a smaller dose. It made me feel relaxed, euphoric. It enhanced touch and sense. It made me feel more loving and flirtatious.
What about coming down from ecstasy?
It was like your mind was kind of readjusting, coming down from a high. You're just tired.
In the Bahamas, did you continue taking drugs?
Yes, ecstasy. Sean gave it to me.
How much did he wire you?
$10,000. We started using the L word. He told me he was seeing multiple women. I was okay with it.
Why?
I liked him.
Did you have the sense you had the option of a monogamous relationship?
No.
Until when did you continue dating Sean?
Until his arrest.
Any breaks?
2. The 2nd in October, 2023, for 4 months.
When did you get back together?
February 2024.
How public were you?
It was private.
Did you post about your relationship with Sean on your social media?
Only once.
Where did you move?
From the East Coast to LA. He gave me $6,000 for a moving trip.
In 2021, February to May, how often did you see him?
Every other week.
What did he give you?
He was sweet. He would give me money here and there.
Cash, wires.
Both.
How often did you use drugs?
Every time I saw Sean. Ecstasy, Molly, cocaine, K, or cocaine. Molly enhanced like ecstasy. Sexual. Horny. Cocaine, it made me feel alert. I didn't like K. The walls were closing in.
In what context did Sean give you drugs?
When we were having sex.
What did you learn?
So many things. How he liked to have be plain. He liked me in lingerie and with high-end shoes. I was to put baby oil all over my body and his.
What type of rooms?
In his bedroom.
How was it lit?
We'd have red lights on.
How did you feel?
I loved them.
May of 2021. What happened?
I remember that when we would watch we would have a lot more fantasy conversation.
Do you need a break, Jane?
No. We would search things on these websites. He wanted me to fantasize.
In May of 2025, was there?
At this moment, the defense objected.
Oh, May of 2021. I am so sorry. Where were you watching the porn?
Mia, I had been awake for 15 hours, or 24.
What drugs?
Ecstasy and Molly. He said, I can make it happen.
Why did you say okay?
I thought I was playing into the fantasy, but when I came out of the bathroom, he was staring into his phone, really serious. He said, it can happen tonight.
How did you react?
I was like, tonight? Then, okay. Then we were in a hotel. I saw the assistant setting up the room. The lights were already red.
Do you remember which assistants?
I don't. He said, there's someone coming. He knows the guy. I was super nervous listening in.
Who did you think this guy was?
The fantasy guy.
What did you think would start happening?
Sexual things between me and the fantasy guy. He arrives and they are talking.
It was a regular hotel room or a suite.
A suite.
What did you do?
I said hello to everyone. I saw Don.
Who is Don?
One of the entertainers.
Publish the photo to the jury. What next?
I was on the couch with my robe on. My legs were crossed. I was nervous.
What happened next?
Sean said to stand up. I did and started to dance, to get my nerve up.
What was Don wearing?
His underwear.
What was Sean doing?
Touching himself.
Was he masturbating?
Yes.
Was he talking? What was he saying?
Being encouraging and sweet. I was ready to speed things up a bit.
What do you mean?
Get it done.
What did you ask for?
A condom.
What did Sean say?
That these guys get tested at the time.
Later, did Don leave?
Yes. Then Sean and I made love. The next day I went home.
Any boat trip?
A nice yacht day.
How did you feel?
I felt exhilarated. It was taboo. I had a good time with my partner.
Did you think you'd do it again?
No. Or maybe a few times. Something taboo.
How did things change?
It opened a Pandora's box. There was so much of it afterwards. Too much of it.
How often?
All the time. I went along.
Later, did you tell him you did not want it?
Yes.
In writing or verbally?
Both. Many times.
What did Sean tell you about your rent when you said you did not want to have sex with other men?
That he'd give me maybe 3 more months.
How did you feel?
Frustrated. Obligated.
Obligated to do what?
At this moment, the defense objected, and then they had a sidebar.
Between 2023 to the time of his arrest, did he pay your rent and make you feel obligated to have sex with other men?
Yes.
What did you two call this night?
Debaucheries or hotel nights.
How often did you see him?
Often.
Every time you'd see him, did you have hotel nights?
Yes. Even though we'd spend a day or two together after, it all felt like a hotel night.
Who decided when?
Sean, on short notice. I always had childcare ready. I was always put together.
What do you mean?
My hair, my nails, my tan. He wanted me beautiful.
Did you go out with friends?
Not after a trip in summer of 2022. He was dismissive.
In the summer of 2021?
To France. I went to the south of France with my friends. He was angry in the voice notes.
Who did he want you to look?
Straight hair, ponytail when we had sex. He wanted me to pierce
Where?
my nipples.
We'll talk about that. Between 2021 and the break in 2023, how much money did you make and how?
Social media posts, but that went down because my presence went down. I was focused on Sean. He would give me money here and there.
How much at one time?
$20,000.
Did you tell him you wanted to make your own money?
When OnlyFans got big, I told him I wanted to do it like one of my model friends. He gave me this hesitant energy like, no.
What is OnlyFans?
Subscribe to models. I do
But no sex acts?
right, but he didn't approve.
Why did you feel you needed his approval?
I felt he was my boyfriend.
Sealed exhibit. What is this?
My lease, April 4th, 2023.
How much was the rent each month?
$10,000. Sean said, let's do a love contract. It was a flirty thing. He asked, how much allowance did I want going forward? I said 15. He said 10.
1,000.
Yes, I wanted a beautiful home for balance.
What's this?
A wire transfer.
To pay your rent?
Yes.
Who got you plane tickets to fly to the hotel nights?
His travel agent Jess, or KK.
What were the hotel suites like?
Red lights, sheets everywhere for the excessive use of baby oil.
How many bottles?
At this moment, the defense objected and it was sustained.
Per hotel night?
24 bottles or more.
This night, where was the hotel night?
In my apartment.
What did you wear during these hotel nights?
Lingerie, high shoes.
What would you and the other man do first?
At this moment, the defense objected and the judge said to rephrase.
Who would you greet?
The entertainer. I was on drugs. Sean told me to touch myself. Then the sex.
Forgive me for asking, but oral or intercourse?
Oral. Later I would be with Sean.
Would you clean up the ejaculate?
No.
How long were the hotel nights?
20 or 30 hours.
We could break here.
And that was the end of today in the Diddy trial. What do you think about the testimonies given today? Who do you think Jane is? Let me know in the comments down below. And
All right, tea sippers. That was a lot. So I put a question in the chat, y'all. Drop those teacups. Remember, when you come in and get your teacup filled up, to like and subscribe. We have reached over 1,000 subbies. Let's keep up that momentum. Okay. I mean, she did not sound as if she was a witness for the prosecution at all. She was love bombed by Puffy. He was paying her rent, upper excess of $10,000, paying all her expenses in a very lavish, luxurious way. And she seemed to be paying him back with her body, her mind, and her soul. Okay. So we're going to keep it going. Who's up next? Part 2 of the Jane Doe testimony. Thank you guys so much. This is the exposed culprits of the Diddy sex love fest, freak offs, and everything else. Are they in the right courtroom, y'all? Should they be in the state courtroom? He's currently in the feds. Y'all drop that down in the chat. Remember to also drop those teacups when you come in the room. Like and subscribe. Keep that teacup up. It's ready to get filled.
before we begin, please be advised that viewer discretion is strongly recommended. None of the content presented here has been exaggerated or taken out of context. These are the exact statements made by the prosecution team, defense team, Jane Doe, on June 6, 2025. Some words have been censored to comply with YouTube's guidelines. What you're about to hear is a voiced-over reading of Jane Doe's testimony in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. Source: courtroom reporter at Inner City Press on X.com. All parties are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Listen at your own discretion.
Good morning. How many times did you travel to Las Vegas?
Once on Sean's plane, he was hosting an event. Then he wanted entertainment for the night. We had that.
What do you mean?
An entertainer. We had
What did going off the grid mean?
getting free.
Did Sean call you a freak?
Yes. He wanted me to be wild and sexual.
Did you ask Sean if the entertainers could wear condoms?
Yes, that first time with Dawn and another. Sean guilty tripped me out of it. It was not something he wanted to see.
What was his tone?
Condescending.
Did he say why he did not want the entertainer to wear a condom?
He did not want to see a rubber.
Did you raise it ever when sober and not in a hotel room?
Yes.
Was this ever recorded?
Yes. One that I am aware of. I am trying to ask the entertainer if he can wear a condom. He's looking for it.
I'd like to call up this exhibit with an aide. Did you listen to this?
Yes.
And did you read the transcript that's up on the screen?
Yes.
Let's start at 8 minutes and 20 seconds. When you said, I think they're in the chair, what were you referring to?
Condoms.
What did you understand Sean to mean when he said, you were just taking that dick?
That we already had intercourse.
And when he said, if you don't touch yourself right now, what was he saying?
To just move on.
Why did you think you needed permission from Sean for the man having sex with your body to wear a condom?
At this moment, the defense objected, but it was overruled, and then they had a sidebar, then continued.
Why did you not say no?
He'd get agitated.
How would intercourse with an entertainer end?
He'd finish on me.
Then what with Sean?
We'd have sex.
Would you clean up the toilet?
No.
Why not?
Sean liked it. To play around with it.
Then what?
I'd take a shower and get ready for the next one.
Typically, how many rounds?
At this moment, the defense objected, but it was overruled.
Every entertainer was different. Some 3.
Who decided if you could stop when you were tired?
Sean.
Do you need a moment?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
How did you say you wanted to stop?
I'd say like, I'm hungry, make little faces. I'd send him subtle cues.
What would he say?
He'd say, you're not getting tired on me, are you? Let's go out on a high note. Let's finish strong.
What would Sean give you to keep you awake and having sex with the entertainers?
Ecstasy.
Did you ever cry after one of these hotel nights?
Twice.
Tell us about the first.
I thought it was a date night, one-on-one, but he said there would be an entertainer, but just a quick one. I hung on to that, but 18 hours. And after 18 hours and 3 rounds with the entertainer, Sean said he had to leave. I started crying.
Were you with someone else?
I was with Sean. It was in the Waldorf in Beverly Hills, early in our relationship.
What did Sean say?
He said, are you crying? Like looking disgusted. Then he just sat there listening to music. I was clinging to him. He said he could move things around with him, family, and I could go home with him. I just wanted to be in his arms after all that.
And the second time?
I was in the shower after one of these nights.
Is your memory spotty? What do you remember?
I was so high. I was having sex with Paul. Then I was in the shower with Sean. He said, stop it, I'm too high. Stop.
Paul?
One of the entertainers.
Were these hotel nights work for you?
At this moment, the defense objected, but it was overruled.
It was work from start to finish.
What did you do to try to get them to end sooner?
I'd try to have sex with the entertainers fast.
What did you do to try to speed things up?
I'd do foreplay and bring them into the room. Sean would say, slow it down, more foreplay.
What words would he use?
At this moment, the defense objected, and it was sustained.
May of 2021 to October of 2023. What would Sean say?
He'd say, I'm not ready to see that yet.
How would you feel?
At this moment, the defense asked for a sidebar. Then they continued.
How did you feel?
I'd want to be with Sean at the end.
Where would you go?
To his residence,
Was there any part of these hotel nights you enjoyed?
being with Sean.
Would he text you?
To say I love you.
Did you text that you wanted to have sex?
Yes, with him.
Did you text him you wanted to have sex with others?
Yes, it was his fantasy.
Did you tell you want to text?
Yes,
Did he tell you what to text?
yes. He'd ask, what do you want? Be explicit.
Why did you write these things?
I wanted to make my lover happy.
Look at this one, from November 9th, 2021. What did you write?
I wrote, I'm horny for you.
You don't have to read this, but did you write, I want to suck Paul's dick? Why do you write that?
I knew it would turn Sean on.
Who is Paul?
An entertainer.
You texted him you wanted to stop having hotel nights?
Yes.
What did you write here?
I'm so much more than being left in the dark of a hotel room. My heart is breaking. I don't want to play this role in your life anymore. I feel it's the only reason you pay for the house. We need to talk like adults.
How long had Sean been paying your rent?
5 months or so.
Did you see drugs in the hotel rooms?
At this moment, the defense objected, but it was overruled.
Ecstasy, Molly, cocaine, pink powder, which I believe is called Tusi.
Who gave them to you?
Sean.
Did you ever see any of the entertainers taking drugs?
No, that was my one rule. I told them they couldn't take drugs. I didn't want them to be out of control while they were with me.
How did ecstasy make you feel?
Full energy.
Why did you feel you had to take these drugs?
Otherwise, it would be too real. I wanted to, I don't know, feel like it would make things easier.
Did you ever do hotel nights without drugs?
Twice, once with Paul.
Why didn't you take drugs that time?
I didn't want to do that to my body, but it felt too real. So I asked Sean for a pill.
Did Sean give it to you?
Yes, I felt better.
The second time?
My partner was taking too many pills. He said, I'll do 30 days without drugs, but let's have one last sobriety party at the L'Hermitage.
How long did it last?
Too long? 18 hours?
What happened?
The first guy, the second guy. I was not feeling well. I threw up. I told Sean I'd just thrown up.
What did you say?
He said, that's good. Now you'll be ready for the third guy. He's here.
How did you feel?
I was just disgusted. I was just repulsed. I was just too mad at myself. I was mad I had let myself get into this.
At this moment, they took a break, then continued.
Did Sean ever run out of drugs during a hotel night?
Yes.
What happened?
He would call one of the assistants or butlers to bring more drugs. Sometimes his security.
What assistants?
Brendan, Frank, John.
Let me show you a photo of Brendan.
That's him. He would bring pill bottles. Then there would be cocaine, weed.
Who from security did he call for drugs?
Fahim. Sean called him Fa.
Who else brought drugs?
Guido. He brought mostly ecstasy, Molly, and Xanax. And coke.
Did you take Xanax?
Yes, after I put Sean to sleep.
Did you ever carry drugs for Sean?
Yes, from LA to Miami. KK told me, I'll have to give you the package. Is it safe and okay?
What did KK tell you?
She said, it's fine, I do it all the time.
Where did you give Sean the package?
In the bathroom of 2-Star. He opened it and then I saw colorful pills. I assumed,
I don't want you to assume. Did you take the pills?
yes, for a hotel night. It was ecstasy.
Did you move drugs for Sean another time?
Yes, in my luggage from LA to Miami. There, Sean and I used them. They were ecstasy.
Before May and October 2021, who reached out to the entertainers?
Sean.
Then who?
Me.
Why did you start choosing?
I didn't want it to just be a stranger. I assessed the dynamic of our relationship. We were walking porn, and I saw a performer and said, that one?
Why did you want to choose?
I couldn't get away from this.
Who did you choose?
Sly Williams. I called him Chef. He had a passion for cooking.
What were you and Sean doing?
Having sex on ecstasy. We started talking about Sly's size. Sean was acting all flirtatious about it. I sent Sly a message over Instagram.
Did he respond?
Yes. I told him I was a fan of his work. Maybe we should meet up one day. We did a FaceTime. Sean was there.
What happened?
It got hot and steamy. I asked him to show me himself.
He showed you his genitals.
Yes, and I was casting from my phone to Sean's television.
How did you get Sly from Atlanta to LA?
I told Sean I would arrange his flight. I booked it online on Expedia. Sean paid me back.
What happened?
He was cute and sweet. He was nervous too. It was my first time.
First time what?
Contacting an adult film star. I had told him it was me and my partner. He said fine.
What hotel?
L'Hermitage, I believe. It was the routine. The oils would come out. I'd be in a uniform. I'd dance. Then sex.
What was Sean doing?
Masturbating.
Then who invited him the next times?
I did. I would suggest Sly. He was familiar to me.
Where else did you meet Sly?
The Trump Hotel.
The Trump Hotel in New York.
Yes. I would book his flights from Atlanta.
And you paid him afterward?
Yes. $2,000 to $4,000.
Where from?
At this moment, the defense objected, and they rephrased the question.
Where did the cash to pay Sly come from?
Sean. From the drawer. Sometimes we used Cash App.
Was there a second adult entertainer you reached out to?
Yes, Anton. I think Anton Harris. It was his stage name. I don't know his real name. We were watching Anton's films and I was really into him. I messaged him on Instagram. He was in LA. I invited him over.
How did Anton respond?
Positively. We were in my first residence.
What happened?
The same. Sean watched. Happy.
Did you see Anton again?
Yes. Sometimes at hotels in LA, sometimes in my apartment.
Did you FaceTime with Anton and Sly?
Yes, when Sean and I were alone having sexy times.
Why would Sean call them?
He wanted something live. I was doing like sexting, FaceTime, and screen sharing to Sean's TV. I told Sly and Anton I was alone so they would feel comfortable.
Did you ask Sly and Anton to send you pictures of their genitals?
Yes, Sean wanted them. He would say, get it.
Did Anton or Sly ever send you photos of their genitals when you were not with Sean?
Yes, I was polite and flirtatious, but not as flirtatious as when I was with Sean.
Did you ever see Anton or Sly in person without Sean?
No.
Are these your texts with Sly? Let me show you.
I was asking for explicit photos or videos from him. That's what my partner wanted.
What did Sly say?
He said, I'm down.
What did you say?
I wrote, I'm touching myself. Then, what's your full name and DOB?
Why that?
To book his travel.
What did you write?
She's booking. Jen was. November 9th, 2021. The flight.
When you received these explicit images, were you alone?
Yes, I sent a blander message. Then he texted me in April 2022. Hello, beautiful. How was your day?
Why did Jess book the flight?
I was too high to type. He'd be the entertainer.
Other entertainers.
Paul and Don. Sean coordinated others.
Between May 2021 and October 2023, how often were the hotel nights?
Often. Every week, every other week.
After February 2024, where did this happen?
2-star and LA.
In the LA residence you're still living in?
Yes.
After February 2024?
Maybe 5 times.
How many different men?
I don't know.
Let's talk about some. Who's this?
Don.
Last time?
August 2024 at 2-star. I only saw Don in Miami.
Who's this?
Paul.
When was the last time?
End of July 2024. Before that, very often.
What did you think Paul did?
A personal trainer for Sean. In LA, Miami, Turks.
How did Paul get there?
He'd book his own travel, or he'd already be there.
Who's this?
A man named Leo. I met him through Sean for one of these nights. I met him on my birthday.
Last time?
2023.
Where did you see Leo?
LA.
What else did you call him?
Italian.
Who's this?
A guy Sean brought into a night in 2021.
What happened?
Sean said he had someone coming over. I was repulsed. In L'Hermitage. He looked sweaty. He didn't look nice. He kind of smelled.
What did you do?
I tried to make it work. I tried to seduce him with my body. He just kept sweating so much. I looked at my partner. I'm not feeling this. I was in lingerie and heels.
What was he wearing?
Nothing. Sean said, "Do you want to taste it?" I said, "I'm not feeling this."
What did Sean do?
He laid me down and started having sex with me.
Where was the man?
Hovering over me. He was sweating on me.
Then what?
Sean told me to look at the man's private part, but it wasn't happening. Sean told him, "No worries," and the man left.
Then what?
Sean told me he had someone else coming. Paul. I was blindfolded. Sean wanted me to touch him. I took a liking to Paul. I was more comfortable. I thought he was handsome and nice, and he had a warm energy.
Did you want to have sex with him?
No, but if I had to have sex with someone, I guess it was not so bad with Paul.
What's this?
Photo of a man named Michael. I saw him twice, in 2022 or 2023. In the Edition, Los Angeles. Sean said something new was coming. Then, just a bit later, Sean was having small talk with this guy on the balcony. He invited me out.
What happened?
I thought Michael was attractive. He was from a website.
Who's this?
I don't know his name. I met him on my birthday in 2023, one of these nights.
What happened?
Sean told me to come to Miami. We would be alone. He was so sweet. We were eating sushi at Nobu in the hotel. Sean said, "We have entertainment." I gulped and said, "Entertainer."
What did he say?
"It's your birthday." I just accepted it.
Why?
I don't know. Upstairs, this man comes in. It was routine. I am like a robot. I am getting the guy comfortable.
Do you need a break, Jane? You said you were robotic. What do you mean?
I have done so many of these. I can just tune out. My partner likes to see. I just turn on this person.
What do you mean you turn into another person?
A person who can just do this.
What happened?
I was much quicker with this person. He felt more like a stranger to me than anyone. I don't want to do this on my birthday. I asked Sean for a condom.
Where was he?
He was behind this man. He gave me these dirty looks like, "You better not ask for a f***ing condom." I could just hear that.
What else did you hear him say?
At this moment, the defense objected, but it was overruled.
I didn't want to sour the mood.
Why didn't you want to sour the mood?
I just didn't want my partner unhappy with me.
Do you need a break, Jane?
No, I'm okay.
What happened next? If you're ready to tell us.
Sean gave him a condom, but then walked away. He was so disappointed. The guy finished. I can't remember where.
What next?
The man left. We switched rooms to a bigger suite.
What then?
Sean was more loving. He was celebratory. He had cake there and balloons, then Sly comes.
Any talk?
No, it was just hours and hours of that. Pleasing this guy. Doing so much. Just doing all of it. Foreplay. Things I know my partner wants to see. Going back and forth. It was morning.
What did Sean say?
That Don was coming?
What did you say?
Nothing. Like that it was fine.
Why?
I love my partner.
What did you do with Don? Let's break for lunch. Have you seen this man?
Sean brought him to our hotel room in LA. I was in a robe and lingerie. The whole wardrobe I usually had.
What happened in the living room of the suite?
I knew this was something I could not fake.
What do you mean?
I was repulsed by him. I tried for 30 minutes. Then I told Sean, "Can I talk to you in the bedroom?" There, I told him, "I can't." I tried again, but no. I told Sean, "I am sorry."
How did Sean respond?
Agitated. Then another man came.
Did Sean talk to you first?
No.
Who's this?
A man I met in New York. I told him I didn't want to go to New York if it was just to set me up with a man. He said, "No, one-on-one." So I went.
Did you get Wi-Fi on the plane?
Yes. Sean sent me a text. "Do you want entertainment tonight?"
How did you feel?
Disappointed. My thought of seeing my lover was shot down.
Where did you go in New York?
The Trump Hotel. I saw the assistant setting up the room with red lights for a hotel night. I took this photograph.
What happened next?
I told Sean I don't want to do this. He was just like super defensive. On the way back to the room, Sean gave me a pill.
What was it?
Ecstasy. I took it. The man was in the room. We had small talk. I let the man touch my leg a little bit. I took Sean to the bedroom and told him, "I can't do this."
How did Sean react?
Agitated. I called another performer.
Why?
That's a hard question. At that point in the relationship, I knew that's what my partner would want.
Was Sean paying your rent?
Yes.
Did he mention it?
At this moment, the defense objected, and the judge said, "Time frame?" Then they continued.
Was this after Sean started paying your rent?
Yes. I called Sly. He was excited. He flew to New York that night from Atlanta.
What happened?
It was nice. We had sex in front of Sean at the Trump Hotel. Me and Sean had to go our separate ways, but I didn't want Sly to feel we were just leaving him. So cash was brought to the front desk for him by an assistant.
Which one?
Joey.
And this man?
I had sex with him in front of Sean.
And another?
Spanish buff man. He was a bit odd, I felt. He was pulling out this scent to smell during sex. I don't know.
In front of Sean?
Yes.
Another?
A man who looked more European. At L'Hermitage, we had sex twice.
Which entertainers did you see most often?
Paul, Sly.
Which ones did you reach out to?
Them, Anton, Don.
Did you ever arrange hotel nights as a surprise for Sean?
Yes, twice. Like Valentine's Day or the return from a trip.
You saw cash during these hotel nights. Where?
Drawer, nightstand.
When Sean ran out of cash, what did he do?
He made a phone call to his security or assistants. KK, cash would appear.
How much?
A good amount.
To whom did Sean hand cash?
Paul, Don. He'd pay at the end.
What would Sean say before he brought out his iPhone to record?
Nothing. Or, "It's just for me."
Did Sean sometimes act different?
Sometimes happy, sometimes not.
What directions would Sean give?
To put the baby oil on the man, to touch myself.
When you knew the camera was on you, how did you react?
It was just a part of it.
Did Sean ever record you while not on drugs?
No.
Did you act like you enjoyed it?
Yes.
Why?
I wanted to put on a good show.
What fantasy talk did you engage in?
So much. Role play. A fantasy. I'm sorry, there are just so many memories. He would create characters.
How is this?
Me and Don. The next one is me and Sly.
This?
Me and Paul. Then me and Leo. Anton and myself.
Was Sean present for all of these?
Yes. I wore the stripper shoes on the whole time.
What would happen with the baby oil?
It would drip down in the shoes. I would try to keep my balance.
Did Sean ask you to get your nipples pierced?
Yes. I said it would turn him on.
Who set up your piercing appointment?
KK.
Then?
They got caught on my lingerie and my nipples got infected. I took them off.
What did Sean say?
He said, "Where are my piercings? This is the last time I see you without them."
Did your back hurt?
Yes, from bending over so much.
Where else did you get sore?
My vagina.
Did you tell Sean?
No.
Why not?
I just didn't want to indicate any negativity.
Why did you keep going?
I'm not sure.
At this moment, they had a sidebar, then continued.
Do you have an estimate of how many times you told Sean you didn't want to keep having these hotel nights?
I don't have an estimate.
Did you write?
Yes, and sometimes I'd have the courage to text it to Sean.
What did you see in your text messages?
That I had been texting it since 2021, how I felt.
What's this?
November 2021, I felt jealous. I saw he was doing things with another woman on their Instagram stories.
Why did you feel jealous if you knew he was dating other women?
I came to do hotel nights with Don and Sly. Then he gives quality time to another woman.
This next text?
I wrote, "I need a breather and a break from you."
Play this exhibit, a voice note.
At this moment, they played a clip of Sean Combs' voice, and it said the following. She asks me to work out. This is the time you gonna be curse at me. I don't have a bunch of guy friends. Don't matter if I just f***ed her. Be sad, go crazy. I don't deserve being honest with someone.
How often did Sean call you crazy?
Often. It made me feel confused.
What did you say?
That she didn't just come to the gym. I don't even care who you are laying up with. I wanted that time with him. I said, you just want the hotel shit.
What happened here?
I had sex with Leo. I was high. It made my partner happy. I was okay with it.
How many phones did Sean use then?
2. Sean started dating another woman. He did a big birthday for her.
How'd you see it?
IG.
What did you say?
I see what you are going for her. Why do you play me? Say she's just a business partner. Then you say she's spending money on you. How would you feel if I said a man was spending money on me?
You wrote,
I feel cheap.
after your first hotel night in May 2021 with Don, what did you do next?
Out on a yacht.
And later?
We would just sleep after hotel nights.
What did you write in this note?
I wrote, why am I just for your freaky desires?
Did you send this to Sean?
No, I did not have the courage.
And this note?
I wrote, you were partying with another girl. You just want me for debauchery. I'm done being used by you. You're trashing my house with dirty debauchery. I'm done.
And what was this?
Right after I spent my birthday having sex with these men in the hotel room, Sean went on a vacation with another girl he was dating.
How did he respond to your text?
He wrote, I didn't tell her about your birthday.
What did he write to you next?
That it looked like I had a nice birthday dinner with my girlfriends.
Who paid for that dinner?
Sean.
But was he there?
No.
And here when you said you were tired?
After 3 men.
What did he write to you here?
He wrote, I'm tired of you throwing sex in my face. Let's just be friends.
What did you think he meant?
Anytime I brought up the hotel nights.
What did you write?
Are you really breaking up with me? You're the only man in my life. You took someone else to the place I have dreamed about.
Where?
Turks.
What did he write?
He wrote, I'm tired of these long texts telling me what I'm doing wrong. I wrote, what am I doing wrong?
Please pull up this exhibit. What is this?
A note on my notes.
Were you writing what you were feeling at the time?
Yes. I wrote, you lied straight to my face to use me for a hotel night before your trip.
When you took a break from Sean, where did you travel?
France. Sean started texting me again and again. Paris, Paris, Paris.
How did it make you feel?
That he cared, but I knew I had to stay strong. I went away for 5 days. He was adamant we should see each other. I missed him too.
Why?
Because I love him. Soon we were planning to go to Turks. I'd go to Miami first.
What did Sean write to you?
He said, a night of debauchery, then to the beach. I said, no, we have to reconnect. He said, cool.
Did that turn out to be true?
No.
What did you do in Miami?
We bickered about Paris. He said his girl can't just up and leave like that.
This photo?
Our dinner.
Then what?
He took a pill and we went to a hotel. We were watching and Sean said, do you want Don?
What did you say?
Yes.
Why?
I was just used to it. Then we went to Turks.
And in Turks?
Paul came in.
What happened?
I'm back in an outfit. I'm going to try to do another round. It was really painful. I couldn't have sex.
Why not?
I was extremely sore at this point. Sean tried to lube me up. He said, you can't take any more dick. I threw the bracelet and said, you only brought me here to suck dick for you. I was talking, then sat on the steps of a villa.
Did Sean talk?
Yes. He said, how can you make me look like that in front of Paul? Sean told me to apologize to Paul. I messaged him and said I was sorry how I acted, that I was really glad he'd come out to see me.
Who told you to do that?
Sean.
What did you write to Sly?
If he could come to Turks, I told him he'd need a passport and vaccination.
What did Sly respond?
I'm willing, but I don't have a vaccination card.
Why did you do this?
To make it up to Sean.
Why did you write this way to Sly and Paul?
I wanted them to feel good, like they were not being used.
Why?
I just do.
What was the love contract in March of 2023?
He asked, how much did I want per month? I said 15 and he said 10.
He started paying your rent?
Yes.
Who is paying your rent now?
Sean.
What else did Sean pay for?
My teeth.
What do you mean?
Sean didn't like my teeth. I got new veneers. He also paid to furnish the house. My allowance just didn't do it. I used 3 credit cards. I had promised him an all-star party.
What's that?
I'd bring the top 3 guys all in the same night.
Why?
I was with my lover and he liked that. I told him, I have to be awake at 8 a.m. Sunday. I said the last time I got sick.
This first text?
He felt hesitation for me about the all-star party. He asked, does your hurt? You're not being straight with me.
The second, a minute later.
He quoted my text asking for help with more furniture for the house.
Here Sean writes, Rico is ready. Who was that?
Maybe the man named Michael. Or wait, maybe it was a role play and Sean was Rico.
You don't know?
I don't.
Why did you send Sean a photo of pink toilet paper?
To show that my period was about to come down, that I needed the night off. Let's postpone.
What did he write back?
You're getting your hair done for nothing. I'm done.
What did you mean movie night was not on my mind? What was that?
We would not have an entertainer. We just watch our own movies of the hotel nights. We called it movie night.
What did you write?
I wrote, why do you talk about the father of my child? All because you don't get your way one night and bust a nut?
What did he say back in this voice message?
At this moment, they played a clip of Sean Combs' voice, and it said, "I don't have time, baby girl."
How did you interpret that?
Making sure he's happy, including these nights.
How did you respond?
That he always brought up paying for the house. It felt like, I don't know, this guilt trip.
I think this is a good time to break for the day and week.
And that was it for the Sean Diddy Combs trial today. What do you think about Jane's testimony so far? Do you think she wanted to do this or not? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, we just heard more explosive testimony from one of the Nymphomaniacs entered into the Diddy trial for the freak-offs, okay? Now, let's stop and sip some tea on that testimony, okay? She did a lot of testifying to, you know, how she was not a victim. Not one time did we hear her say anything about, you know, him making her, him forcing her, however, that he was paying her rent in the upper excessive amount of $10,000 a month. He was supplying her with a lot of drugs, furnishing her home, taking her on, you know, expensive vacations, Turkeys, Greece, Rome, Spain, everywhere, right? And she was the one saying that she was, you know, finding these exotic male erotic escorts, you know, males. And not one time did she say, you know, Sean was the one that was looking for them. She would find them. Maybe, you know, Sean may have some correspondence with them, or however, they were all willing, paid, erotic, you know, escorts. And yeah, not one time also in this testimony did we hear her ever say anything along the lines of he would beat on her. Okay, none of the other Jane Does or anyone else, aside from a testimony a couple weeks back where I believe one of the assistants or someone that works for Diddy said that he slapped her, pulled her hair, did something like that to her. But right now, we haven't heard anyone testify other than Cassie to him abusing them. Everybody else has been willing, you know, very much so loving, wanting to have Diddy essentially pimping for their rent money, their lavish, you know, life that they were living with Diddy. So now we're going to go on to the next explosive testimony from some nymphomaniacs in the Diddy trial. And when you come into the tea chat, remember to like and subscribe. Have your teacups up, ready to be filled. Tanisha Talks Teas is back up with another day of Diddy testimonies. Diddy trial continues. Where are we? We are with, okay, we just had the Jane Doe. The Jane Doe here appears to be a Caucasian girl. Okay, she appears to be a Caucasian. All right. Have we listened to the final testimony of Mia? Let's see. Thank you guys so much for sipping tea with Tanisha tonight.
Before we begin, please be advised that viewer discretion is strongly recommended. None of the content presented here has been exaggerated or taken out of context. These are the exact statements made by the prosecution team, defense team, and Mia on June 2nd, 2025. Some words have been censored to comply with YouTube's
and I do
guidelines.
want to say,
A lot of the girls that Diddy were interacting with were all young, impressionable, vulnerable girls in the world. None of them, aside from like Kim Porter, J Lo, were any women. Even Kim Porter, I believe, she was just starting out as a model. She wasn't like in her Naomi Campbell bag at the time yet. So Diddy seems to, encroach on women that he knows he can kind of manipulate financially in that manner, or however have you. A lot of the girls just seem to do whatever Diddy put out for them to do, seemingly for them to believe that they were his girlfriend. I want to drop this tea on all the young women, any women out there that are listening right now. Do what you do, however you feel like selling your soul. Not for nothing. I mean, Diddy had these women sleeping with 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different men in a night, back to back to back, on their birthday, for God's sakes. I mean, what woman wants to have a freak off session on their birthday just to please their partner? Unless that's what you're into, do you do what you do, okay? However, just so you can have your rent paid, your car note paid, your, go on a vacation, however, whatever have you, there's a lot more to life than just, giving yourself to someone because I love my partner. I wanted to always and only please my partner. There are so many other ways that a man can appreciate you, your body, and what you bring to this world than you sleeping with 9, 10 men in a night just to show him, how much you love to please your partner. That shit is insanely crazy. The things that, Diddy proposed his so-called girlfriends, young girls, women in his life would do for him to show him that they cared for him back as well. I mean, y'all need to go to school, get a trade, get a skill, get a career, go to college. You see what I'm saying? Stop wasting your parents' college money on bullshit. Get your lives in order so that you are not someone that wealthy men would prey on. And in a sense, sorry, I've been eating corn nuts. In a sense, use your body for a toilet stool, because that's exactly what Diddy did to those young girls. So we're going to keep those young girls lifted up in prayer and hope that, things in their life turn around for the better the rest of their lives, because so far that is not what it should have been given. Next up, we have Mia on June 2nd. We're going to double back to June 2nd. We're going to finish up with some Mia testimony. Thanks for sipping tea with Tanisha. Let's sip this tea.
What you're about to hear is a voiced-over reading of Mia's testimony in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. Source: courtroom reporter at Inner City Press on X.com. All parties are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Listen at your own discretion. Show DX1750. Did you work as an assistant to someone?
Maybe 2008 or 2007. I'm not sure.
You had a resume saying you had the ability to multitask and had thick skin.
I'm not sure I wrote that.
That you were able to deal with uncomfortable situations 24/7. At this moment, the prosecution objected, but was overruled. Did you use this as your CV?
Looks like it.
1753-R for admission. You went to James Madison University. It's a well-known institution.
Sure.
Then you were a design assistant?
Yes.
In 2008 to 9, you say you provided round-the-clock support, all personal and professional needs, keeping passport.
Okay, now we have already heard testimony of that, okay, from Mia a week or so back. So now we're going to get into other Diddy news, okay? Let's get into some more Diddy news. What's been going on in the trial since we left off on day 12, okay? We're coming up to day 15 and current. Everything's explosive. We have got, activated snitches and exposed nymphomaniacs. Okay, all over Diddy stuff. Let's see what TMZ's been talking about, y'all. TMZ on Diddy. Thanks for sipping tea with Tanisha. Let's see what's been going on. What's been going on? Diddy trial, damning evidence. What's the damning evidence? I want to know. Who wants to know with Tanisha? Talks tease. Let's see.
Today on TMZ.
Well, the old saying is you don't want to know how the sausage is made, but in the case of one Kylie Jenner, we definitely want to know how the boobs were made.
This ban on...
Not really.
Not a bribe. This is a payment.
Diddy was very concerned that he wanted to make sure that this was the only copy. This was it.
But that obviously isn't what happened.
No.
Cardi B is super happy that she left Offset.
I was gonna end up killing him. Seriously, with my own bare hands.
Get over it, Cardi. She's still hung up on him.
She really is.
If I'm Stefan...
So we're getting past all the other hot topics on TMZ to get to the Diddy stuff.
Who killed JFK? Where is Jimmy Hoffa? Who is the father of Bigfoot's...
And then tan, and then you're wearing the short shorts. That's a little weird.
Still don't know how the prosecutors got the actual hard drive recording. When they raided the house, did they get it, is my question.
Or the hotel said, yeah, we'll delete it and didn't.
So, what does this mean for Diddy?
This is not a bribe. A bribe is to a public official. This is a payment for silence to private people, security guards at a hotel. It's legal to do this.
Because the deal itself is legal, it doesn't really go toward a RICO. This isn't a criminal enterprise.
So then what's the point of bringing all this up in court?
To show state of mind that he was trying to cover up an illegal act.
If he thought it was legal, if there wasn't anything illegal, nothing to cover up.
Which means it's not looking good for Diddy.
Sabrina Carpenter just released a teaser.
Borderline
On this one.
things go.
That's great. He said he was just on my podcast talking about it. So obviously he thinks about it.
But also in these moments, you have to...
Okay. They only said like two things about Diddy on that one. Hold on. We're going to get to Diddy shit. Okay. Are some walking diseases.
He was arrested back in September. Girlfriends who's testifying, and she was just on my podcast talking about it. So obviously he thinks about it.
But also in these moments, you have to...
Okay. They only said like two things about Diddy on.
Girlfriends who's testifying, and she's testifying under the pseudonym Jane. And probably the key moment in the trial today, this is a quote from the defendant: "Get on your job." And that, you actually heard Diddy's voice in court today. People who were in the court heard that. We're going to explain why that was such an important phrase for the jury to hear, and for the jury to hear that audio. So Jane was testifying as she started yesterday. Today she was, the prosecutors were questioning her about her lifestyle with Diddy. We heard her say several times that she was in love with him. This was someone that she viewed as her partner, and that she wanted to make him happy. In fact, they had what she referred to as a love contract. That they had a love contract they signed for 2 years. And why there needed to be a contract? Well, that's because she says Diddy was paying her rent. And in fact, here was something kind of shocking. She said he's still paying her rent. Mind you, he went in he was arrested back in September, and here she is testifying for the government against him, but she said he is still paying $10,000 a month. That was the agreed upon price in their contract. So she talks about when this contract started. They were in Turks and Caicos, and it was a trip that she thought was going to be just the two of them, a nice romantic trip. And she said, turns out that he had also arranged for, and this is her word, an entertainer, a sex worker or escort, to be flown to Turks and Caicos, and they ended up having what Cassie called freak-offs. Jane is referring to as hotel nights, and that went down, and said she was disappointed by that, but again, she wanted to make her man happy. So she talks about, now one of the things that, because she's talking a lot about these hotel nights and these sexual encounters, and she gets into, in some parts of the testimony today, very graphic detail about what was happening during these hotel nights with other men, multiple men in some instances. But one of the things she talks about is whether or not, what the prosecutors are trying to get to is whether or not she was forced into this. And this was really important. We heard this when Cassie was testifying, and we're going to get it throughout Jane's as well, that the jurors no doubt are listening for, and the prosecutors want to raise instances where it seems that Jane was forced into this, that there was coercion, and that she was sex trafficked. And she talks about condoms. She said that the first time it came up was during a night they were in Las Vegas, and that they had an entertainer come over, and she said it out loud, made it clear to Diddy that she wanted this entertainer to wear a condom.
Good.
And she said that Diddy told her he didn't want to see any rubbers, and that she felt, this is what she said she felt like it was a guilt trip, and so they ended up not using condoms, and that was the way things usually went. She said that there were not condoms involved, but she clearly wanted that, but at some point she didn't.
And that is so disgusting. Like, Diddy is a sickening person, okay? Should he go to prison in the feds for not wanting his so-called freak-off girlfriends to not use protection? No, that's not a crime. However, morally and, just all, around, however you want to look at it, that's disgusting that, Diddy and them are some walking diseases. Diddy and them is walking diseases. They over here freaking off with every, escort, prostitute that they could possibly find with no condoms. That is disgusting. That is disgusting. And we're wondering why, we're just saturated with all types of STDs, AIDS and everything.
Because, again, she said she wanted to make Diddy happy. The key part here is, did she ever say it to him? Now, she says during this Vegas trip, she did say she wanted to use condoms, and that they ended up not using them. But the point here is that if she doesn't say it to Diddy, how is he supposed to know that she is doing something she doesn't want to? And if it's just that she felt something, that might not actually get to the point of coercion. He can't tell he's forcing her unless she voices that objection. She said she did in Vegas, so will that one instance be enough? I'm not sure. But as for...
Be enough to what, though? To say that the coercion of Diddy not, wanting her to use a condom while she willingly participated in acts with prostitutes and escorts, that's coercion in a RICO trafficking charge? How? Enough to do what? Because it sounds like she was never beaten, she was never hit. We never have heard her testify to the extent of what Cassie did, or I don't know what the jurors have saw. I don't know. But I know what we have heard so far, and we haven't heard so far that he beat on any woman like he did Cassie or maybe Kim Porter.
These hotel nights. She talked about one, and this is one where, to me, it's certainly, if I'm on the jury, this definitely sounds like forcing her into something. She says they had a hotel night. They have, she had sex with not one, but two other men. Diddy was there and involved in certain ways. But after sex with these two other men, she was feeling sick and she got up and went to the bathroom, says she threw up. And Diddy came into the bathroom and said, "Are you okay?" And he said something to the effect of, "Well, you vomited, you're gonna feel better now." And she's like, "I'm really not feeling all that well." And he says, "Well, you gotta come on, because guy number 3 is waiting in the room." And she had to go back out and have yet another sexual encounter with this third person. I mean, she's describing feeling sick to her stomach. She's saying it was probably because of drugs she was taking. She talked a lot about doing ecstasy before these things just to get in the mood, that she needed this to get in the mood. And she's throwing up in the bathroom, and his concern is, according to her testimony, his only concern is, we got another guy out there, let's go, get back on it. So, let's get to this.
I mean, how much more different is Diddy than, say, a Hugh Hefner? You see what I'm saying? We have heard, I'm watching these stories on the Playboy murders, and I've also watched a lot of things unfold on the Playboy mansion, the Playboy lifestyle. After Hugh Hefner died was really the only time that people were actually really willing to come out about Hugh Hefner, and there was a lot of shit that came out about Hugh Hefner's ass, and we never saw Hugh Hefner on trial for anything, or even going to jail for any fucking thing. I've heard stories about Hugh Hefner sleeping with chihuahuas, sleeping with fucking German shepherds, because he had, fucked everything moving, including men, allegedly underage people. I heard things on this television show about Hugh Hefner where Hugh Hefner had a lot of football players. Allegedly, Bill Cosby was there, other people in celebrity world, and they were raping girls in some pool area or some shit. They were raping girls anally. All types of shit was going on. Not one time did we see Hugh Hefner's ass go to jail. I'm not saying it's right. I know it's very wrong if it's all true. But it seems as if this girl, she knew what it took to please her partner and keep her rent paid. Yeah, she may have said, "Oh my God, I feel so sick, Diddy." Did she say, "Not tonight, Diddy? I can't go on another guy, Diddy. I want to leave, Diddy. Diddy, please don't make me do this anymore." Anything of that nature, because it sounded to me, y'all let me know, sippers, what it sounded like to y'all. Okay. As far as her being unwilling or, saying, "I can't, I gotta go. I want to leave. Let's end this now." Diddy's like, "Okay, shit, you threw up. Now you should feel a little bit better. Let's get back in here and, keep the party going," type shit. And you know what I'm saying? According to how she knew things rocked and roll with Diddy and her, it was expected of her to know what her role was to play in that moment. She chucked it up. She threw it up. She chucked it up. She swallowed it, and she went back out there and continued to perform for her lover, her partner, because that's all she lived to do, was to please her partner. If that's a sex trafficking victim, she's not saying or claiming to be. That's all I'm saying, sippers. Well, what do y'all hear? Tell me if y'all hear something different.
On your job, quote. And this was a voice message that was played in court. She's describing an argument that she's having with Diddy on the phone, and or they're communicating by phone, and she's saying, you know, why are you doing things this way? They're having an argument, and she's admonishing Diddy for saying something about the father of her child. And during that argument, he leaves, and the prosecutors played this voice message in court. He leaves her a message that says, I don't have time for this, baby girl. You need to get on your job. And the prosecutors asked Jane what she took that to mean. She said, I took it to mean I need to go back to making him happy, keeping him happy with these hotel nights, with these sexual encounters, because he is paying my rent.
Exactly.
That her job, she was getting this money, that he's paying for her rent, and what she had to do in return was do these sexual encounters with multiple other men. So does that rise to the level of coercion? We're told from our reporter in the courtroom that voice that when you heard Diddy saying that, he sounded annoyed, that he was annoyed that she was arguing with him about something that he clearly felt was nonsense, and what he wanted her to focus on was her job. That really does sound like coercion. And again, it doesn't have to be multiple instances of it. If they can make it clear to the jury that she felt like she was being forced into this, you know, that gets the job done as far as that counts. Now, keep in mind that there was all day, this was just the prosecution questioning Jane. The defense has not gotten to cross-examine her yet. I'm certain that when they do, and it looks like that will happen some point late on Monday, or maybe it won't even start till Tuesday. But once they do, they're absolutely going to hit on this point that you continue to do this. It was your choice to keep taking this $10,000. It was your choice to have him paying your rent. You could have left. She has not mentioned any instances of violence, which we had with Cassie. So you can make the argument with Cassie that she felt intimidated, that if she tried to leave, if she said no, that there would be some violence inflicted upon her. We have not heard that from Jane, and so I would imagine that the defense is going to hit on that. But again, that didn't happen today, so really all the jurors heard were her tales of being, as she's describing it, being forced to do all of these sexual encounters that she didn't want to. She said she loved Sean, that she wanted to make her partner happy, and that's what she was doing, and that's why she was doing it. Will the jury take it that way, or will they start to think, you know, that she had a choice and could have left? You don't have, here's the big difference between Jane and Cassie. The jurors don't have this video in their minds, right? They don't have a hotel beating that's captured on camera. And so it is plausible, you know, in the words of Bill Maher, that they are going to feel like she should have left. We'll see what happens with that next week. But for that reason, and for the jury hearing Diddy's voice saying, get on your job, I think you got to say the prosecution was the winner today. And maybe the defense will be able to blunt that once they start cross-examination. But this was a long, long day of testimony from Jane, laying out all the lurid details of their sexual encounters, which she says she didn't want to be in. So got to hand this one to the prosecution. We will see what happens next week. And that started this massive fight where she says Diddy then starts chasing after her. She says that he kicked through a bedroom door, and then she hid in the bathroom, and he kicked down the bathroom door and is going after her. At one point, she goes into a closet, and he is chasing her, grabs her, puts her in a headlock. Hey everybody, Charles here, and welcome to your recap of the 19th day of the Diddy trial. And Jane's testimony continued today with something really explosive, a description of something, and I know this is going to be hard to believe, but at least from the description, that Cassie beating video that we have all seen and we've all been horrified by, with good reason, that beating does not compare to something that Jane described, a fight that she and Diddy got into where they are both punching each other. It is really brutal. We're going to get to that in a moment. But the day started with the mistrial and the judge addressing what we told you happened over the weekend, that Diddy's attorneys had filed for a mistrial, accusing the prosecutors of intentionally putting someone on the stand, that person being Cassie, and having her tell what they believe is a lie about this incident where Diddy allegedly hung Brianna Bongolan over the 17th-story balcony. And the lie they claim in the mistrial filing is that Cassie, when she was on the stand, said that she witnessed this, that she actually saw Diddy do this to Brianna. Well, when Brianna testified, she said that Cassie was home. This happened at Cassie's apartment. Cassie was home, but she did not come out and actually see anything until after Diddy had pulled Brianna back over the balcony and thrown her into some deck furniture. So there is also this text message where Cassie says to Christina Coram, Diddy's chief of staff, says to her, look, I just found out something really shocking that happened. So the fact that she's saying she found it out does not sound like she was there witnessing it. And they believe that this is prejudicing the jury and that you had someone commit perjury. They say, they contend that it is Cassie who lied because Cassie did not actually see this. So we will see what the judge said this morning, that prosecution will get a chance to respond to that, and then he will make his decision on whether there's a mistrial on Tuesday morning. So tomorrow is a big, big day. As for the rest of the day's testimony, once the jury came in, Jane was back on the stand. This is Diddy's ex who was testifying under that pseudonym. And she talked about being with him on the day that the lawsuit was filed, that Cassie filed the lawsuit. Actually, not being with him on the day the lawsuit was filed, but reading the lawsuit after it had been filed. And remember, it was settled the day after Cassie filed this. She and Diddy reached an agreement and she got $30 million. But Jane says she was reading the lawsuit and she told Diddy that it was very upsetting to her because it felt like she was reading her own story. And she said that there were so many things in Cassie's lawsuit that felt like events that she had gone through. And then she also talked about being with him the day the Cassie tape was released, the hotel beating tape was released, and watching the lawyers come in, watching staff members huddle around him, family members huddle around, talking about how they were going to go forward here. She says that she even saw his first draft when he was doing his apology video, what he was going to say. So she talked about all of that. And while it was upsetting, she did say that they were sort of on a break after Cassie's lawsuit, and they finally did come back together around Jane's birthday in February the next year. And she talks about feeling like this was going to be different, this was better, but she ultimately said, yes, there were more hotel nights, as she puts it. Cassie called them freak-offs, she calls them hotel nights, and that this even continued after the raids went down. Now, she says after the raids at Diddy's homes, they would no longer go to hotels, but they would do it at his home or her home. And there was one night in particular that she talked about that was in June of 2024. And this was, actually the date was June 18th. And this is this huge fight that they got into, that just to read her description of this, it sounded to me like, if you've seen the old movie The Shining, when Jack Nicholson is chasing down his wife and breaks through the door with the axe and says, "Here's Johnny." That's what, and I don't mean to laugh about it, in the movie you can laugh about it, but what Jane described is really horrifying. And she says that they were having a pleasant evening. They showed photos of the dinner that had been laid out. There were candles, and she thought it was going to be a nice romantic night at home. But she said about 30 minutes into this, they had been having some champagne, they had some tequila, and things got a little touchy at first because he had been on a trip to Utah, and Jane said, "Who were you on this trip with?" Accused him of being with another woman. And what she was really upset about is that he continues, and she talked about this all day, that he continually would take other women, she believes, on these trips, and she would never go on those trips. She was only really, she felt, there to have these encounters with other men. So she says she confronts him about this and actually called him a pedophile. Said that, she very quickly made it clear she didn't mean that the woman that she was accusing him of being with was under 18, but she was, as she put it, 27 years his junior, not yet able to buy alcohol legally, and she felt like that was like being a pedophile, and that started a huge fight between them. She admits that she pushed his head into the kitchen counter, and that when he bent over to tie his shoe, and she pushed his head into the kitchen counter, and that started this massive fight where she says Diddy then starts chasing after her. She says that he kicked through a bedroom door, and then she hid in the bathroom, and he kicked down the bathroom door and is going after her. At one point, she goes into a closet, and he is chasing her, grabs her, puts her in a headlock. She finally escapes from this closet, says she manages to change her clothes, and then she runs down the block from her home 6 blocks away and hides behind a wall and stays behind this wall for 2 hours and then goes back to the house. And when she goes back to the house, she says that Diddy is still there, and there's more fighting that goes on. She says he eventually kicks through a guest room door. I mean, the way she's describing it, there's no place she can hide, and this fight keeps going on and on and on. Eventually, she ends up going in to take a shower, and she says he comes into the shower. Pants on, she's naked, she's looked in the mirror, she's seen welts developing on her eye, and that he comes into the shower, according to her, slaps her 3 times and tells her to just put some ice on it and leaves her in the shower. It is a horrible, horrible scene that she has painted if it is true. Now, this is her testimony. Again, she's going to be cross-examined tomorrow, and I would imagine there are going to be some challenges from Diddy's team about this story, but it really did just paint this brutal, brutal story from that night. Now, what's interesting, after that night, she does say she goes back to him the next week, and this is a pattern that continues. She says up through August, that is when they had their last sexual encounter with another entertainer, as she puts it. Now, her going back and continually going back to him, we heard this with Cassie, and there was all the debate about whether she should have just left him. Now, she's saying she's going back because she loved him, and that's what she, wanted to be with him. But every time she goes back, she says she ends up having another one of these sexual encounters with other men that she didn't really want to have. That's what she's said all along. This is going to be really critical tomorrow when she is cross-examined, because she does admit this as well, that even though she went back to Diddy every time, what would end up happening, and she described at least 2 occasions where they would be together, she would take ecstasy, he would give her either a pill or sometimes it was in liquid form, and that she would then suddenly missed one of the entertainers. She turned to Diddy after taking the ecstasy and said, "I miss Paul." And he says, "You want to get him over here?" And he calls up Paul. They get Paul there. There's another time they flew someone in, Don, that she missed. So she's asking him, she's, according to her own testimony, initiating these instances where they are having these sexual encounters, which she said she didn't want to have, but yet she's initiating it. I would think that she's going to say the ecstasy had something to do with that. I don't know, but that is going to be critical when she is cross-examined, because this is really about whether or not Diddy was sex trafficking Jane. This isn't really about the RICO charge so much, as far as we've heard so far. It's not about that. This is about the sex trafficking. It's also about transporting individuals for purposes of prostitution. There have been several times that she has mentioned them doing that, flying people in for these sexual encounters. So the sex trafficking part, though, that's got to be coercion. And there is even a moment where she says that Diddy used the word, and this was in the summer of 2024, that Diddy used the word coercion. She said she didn't want to do a sexual act with one of these men, and then she took the ecstasy, and Diddy asked her, according to her, is this coercion? And interestingly, after he asked that, she still went through with the sexual act with this other man. So cross-examination with Jane is going to be really critical. We will see where that goes. We're also going to find out tomorrow about the mistrial. But this Jane certainly has revealed a lot about their relationship that we just had no idea all this was going on, and going on so late into 2024, just a month before he was arrested. So who are the winners and losers today? The winner is the prosecution. And, you know, as far as the sex trafficking, I think, you know, Jane has certainly painted a picture of every time she's with him, it is purely for those purposes. Now, again, like I said, the big question is going to be, was she willing? Was she doing this willingly? She has said that there are many times she didn't want to do it and felt forced into it, or she was drugged. Although then the question is going to be, was she forced to take the ecstasy? Did she do it willingly? All of that will be cleared up, I hope, once the cross-examination begins. And then, of course, there'll be a redirect. Tomorrow is going to be a huge, huge day. And we are, of course, going to have all of that for you on the website.
All right. So we are sipping tea with Diddy's trial, y'all. What do y'all think? Do y'all think it was willing of the drugs? Do y'all think it was forced? What do y'all think? We're going to keep it moving with some more explosive testimonies and thoughts on the Diddy trial. Let's get into some sidebar.
We have learned a lot more about the complicated
Remember, when y'all come into the chat,
relationship between Sean Diddy Combs and Jane, another
Also,
alleged victim in this
when
sex
you come
trafficking,
into
racketeering,
the
prostitution
room.
case. From audio tapes to text to payments to Homeland Security searches to extortion to alleged violence. What relationship between Sean Diddy Combs and Jane, another alleged victim in sex trafficking, racketeering, and prostitution case. From audio tapes to text to payments to Homeland Security searches to extortion to alleged violence. What exactly happened in court today, and how does it fit into the overall case? Let's talk to our in-court reporter, Law and Crime's Elizabeth Milner, to get to the bottom of it. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, this ain't
Remember, when y'all come into the chat with your teacups up, drop them down and in the chat. Like and
another
subscribe.
Law and Crime legal alert. If you received Depo-Provera birth control shots and were later diagnosed with a brain or spinal tumor called meningioma, you may be eligible for a lawsuit. That's right. Morgan & Morgan is investigating claims that patients complicated. It's complicated by her messages to Sean Combs. It's complicated by her testimony that she was with Combs basically a few weeks up until his arrest. And you also have to wonder, is it also complicated with what she said today, including new allegations of violence that have changed the trajectory of her testimony? So a lot to get into with what happened today. Let me bring on Elizabeth Milner, Law and Crime's in-court reporter who was there for every minute of the action. Elizabeth, so good to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I feel like a large portion of the beginning of the day, for the first few hours, was dedicated to the prosecution asking her to elaborate and explain her reluctance to engage in these sex acts. And it becomes a question of whether or not it was her as a girlfriend or partner who just didn't want to do this, or, as part of a relationship issue, or whether it was a crime. This was non-consensual, a form of force, fraud, or coercion used to induce her into engaging in commercial sex acts with men in all different cities. So, Elizabeth, what was the testimony from the first few hours today about this reluctance?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of text messages that were shown specifically to the jurors and the witness and the parties. Unfortunately, we weren't able to see them in the gallery because of a pre-existing order whenever Jane was to take the stand, and that has been going on since last week. So we haven't been able to see exhibits, I want to say, since last Thursday. But we're hearing these text messages as AUSA Maureen Comey and even Jane herself is kind of reading through a number of these text messages, either from her and Diddy, between herself and the escorts. But as far as just her and Diddy goes, right off the bat, as we had started this morning, we see a text message between Jane and Diddy from September 15th of 2023, where Jane was texting Diddy on these different phones because he has more than one phone. And Jane would say, should we start looking for Sunday night flights? And Jane said, love and miss you, mine's forever. And Diddy's responding, send me some SHIT of you being a bad girl. And Jane believed that those messages about her sending him something was for her to send sexually explicit videos to Diddy. And Diddy had responded, when is the earliest you can get here? Jane says that she didn't want to send this particular video, and Diddy said something along the lines of, the F, I'm asking you to do this. I have the phones, and those phones being with the phones that they have of explicit videos together. Diddy said, stop it, don't say no to me. And Jane says, well, I'm traveling with our phone. And Jane says that Diddy would record on his two phones, and then his assistants and staff had easy access to it. So they had this separate phone to record their sexually explicit videos together. And Jane was saying in these messages, that phone doesn't look, and I'm paraphrasing here because they go by so fast when they're kind of saying these out loud. And Jane had said, you're using our vids to get erect with someone else. And Diddy said, bye, I was asking you to send something, good night. Jane says, well, I'm not going to New York, you're texting me so that way you can get erect for somebody else. And Jane says that she saw on a podcast that he was bragging essentially about having sex for 48 hours completely with someone else. And so Diddy had told her that no sex was involved on this trip, where he was going on this podcast with another person, another woman that Diddy was seeing, and just kind of bragging about this. And this 48-hour trip that he was kind of talking about was on a yacht, and that Diddy told her that he was going to take her on this specific trip, and that Jane agreed to do a hotel night after he had promised her to take her on this trip, and that he ended up not taking her on the trip. So it seems like it's kind of going possibly into the prosecution's argument, which they believe it's sex trafficking by fraud, where he was promising her to do these things and then she would comply with it, but then he would end up not taking her out on special dinners or anything like that. And you kind of can see both sides of this, right? Where, okay, is it a crime for a man to lie to you? Not necessarily, but according to the prosecution and their argument, they think because that she was complying and doing these hotel nights, that kind of played into their kind of theory of the case. And so then we see more exhibits, text messages from Jane and Diddy, where Diddy is saying, what happened? I'm sad, what happened? Jane is saying, well, I don't want to be used and locked in a room to fulfill your fantasies. We hear about an exhibit from September 16th of that same year of 2023. But this one is a note from Jane's notes app, where she says that she kind of just writes out her feelings similar to diary entries, and then sometimes will kind of copy and paste send them as a text message, where Jane did just that, where she had said, as much as I want to see you, I don't want to be treated like a hoe in a hotel room. And Jane was explaining that she was just writing out her feelings. And so then we hear about more texts between Jane and Diddy, where Jane is saying, I don't want to be used, locked in a hotel room. I'm starting to realize what this is. And Diddy saying, girl, that was podcast talk. I was alone. I'm tired of your false accusations. I promised on Baby Love, who is his youngest daughter, I didn't have sex. And Jane was saying that wasn't podcast talk, and saying that you made Papa proud. And this was kind of in reference to this podcast where Diddy was kind of talking about this 48 hours of sex, essentially. And Diddy had said, bye, always tripping around me. And so then we kind of see more text exhibits where Jane was saying that she wanted to go back to when they first started dating. She said, I opened Pandora's box. She can't seem to close it. She said, one night of fun turned into our entire relationship. I'm crying as I'm writing this. And Diddy is responding, "Stop, girl, let's talk." And then he sends her an audio message, and then Diddy can be heard on this particular audio message. So the jury is hearing this. We're hearing this out loud inside the courtroom, where Diddy has kind of this raspy voice, and he's saying that he was sick in bed. "The message you sent me, what's the problem? We have an actual open relationship. What's the problem?" And that Diddy never brought up kind of her concerns about doing these hotel nights. Instead, he just never talked about it in this particular audio message. And so Diddy ended up calling her on a FaceTime and told her what she wanted to hear. That's what she testified to. And Jane testified, "He said a lot of things that I like to hear, that he loved me, that he missed me, that he wanted to see me." And so Jane ended up agreeing to go to New York. And this was a trip to New York in September of 2023, where she thought that she was going just for alone time with her boyfriend. And then what ended up being alone time with her boyfriend actually turned into them messaging Cabral, who was an escort that they had used often in their freak-offs. And then Cabral was flown out from Atlanta, Georgia, over here to New York, and that Jane participated in this freak-off with Diddy and, with Cabral, as Diddy kind of watched, and that was what had ended up happening. And so we saw a lot of text messages where she was really just kind of explaining her frustration as far as why Diddy was treating her this way and making her out to be kind of someone who was only used to fulfill his fantasies, as opposed to the other women that he was kind of taunting out there, kind of to what she was kind of describing in her face a little bit, where she was kind of kept a secret, and that her job essentially was to hire these other men, or to bring these other men for their hotel nights or debauchery nights. And so we saw a lot of text messages from around that time frame where she seemed to be very vocal about voicing her opinion on that she didn't want to do it. But then I think kind of that area is where maybe it kind of confused the jury, is that even afterwards she still did it. And so I feel like when cross-examination eventually happens, that they'll really kind of be like, okay, well, you continue to do this even after you said you didn't want to do this, and you said this, but you did that. And so, overall, a lot of text messages were shown that really kind of voiced Jane's opinion about just not wanting to do these hotel nights anymore.
Yeah, I saw there was some reporting where she allegedly said, "I'm not a porn star. These experiences are desensitizing sex for me. It's been 3 years of me having to bleep strangers." There was another, "You pair me up with some random man, any bleep for your own sick sexual." And there were parts where it looked, I mean, I wonder if the jury will accept, was he threatening her directly, indirectly? I mean, I believe there was one message, "You're burning a bridge that you're going to need tomorrow," and we know that financial control is a big part of this, gifts, cash, rent. But I have to tell you, Elizabeth, my jaw hit the floor. I think a big controversial moment, if we're trying to understand whether or not she was a willing participant or consented to this, didn't she write in a text message to Sean Combs that she consented in the videos of these sexual encounters? Because we know, according to her testimony, that Sean Combs have recorded some certain of these sex acts, and he basically said what? That if people look at these videos, they'll see it was consensual. Didn't she agree with that? Or I might be completely wrong.
So Jane was kind of vocalizing just her displeasure of having to do these wild debauchery nights or hotel nights just with other men, that she always wanted to be having sex with her partner, and her partner being Sean Combs. So she messaged Diddy saying that you place these harmful men on me, and Diddy had responded, "Well, talk to God, I'm gonna pray for you, you're burning a bridge that you aren't prepared to pay for." And Jane said that in the text that she knew that she had consented to being on this tape, but she said she was uncomfortable, but she kept doing this because she loved Diddy, and that Diddy kind of even threw in her face that she appeared to be enjoying it. She appeared to be excited even while she was on these freak-off tapes or these sexually explicit videos. And Jane says, "Well, I'm sorry, I want to feel better." And that was in reference to her just feeling uncomfortable throughout this entire process. And so Jane admitted while she was on the stand that she did watch her own freak-off tapes, and she said that I was being high and following a pattern in the majority of these tapes. It was like watching the same show over and over again. And so this was kind of at a point in, I guess, her and Diddy's relationship where she was really just kind of telling him that she didn't want to be doing these hotel nights anymore, and that the videos were kind of thrown back into her face. But it seems like from her perspective, while she was on the stand, I should say, that she didn't feel as comfortable as maybe the video may have portrayed her to look as more comfortable and consenting in this process.
Yeah, I wonder how much the jury is going to wrestle with the idea. Did she vocalize enough her perceived lack of consent. You know, there was a part of it where she talked about in her notes app, she said she was having PTSD, but was that properly communicated to Sean Combs? It's important for a legal analysis. Now, there was another change in her testimony because she had testified she's having these problems with Sean Combs, right? They're back and forth on this. And then Cassandra Ventura files her lawsuit in November 2023. What was her reaction to Cassie's lawsuit? And what did she communicate to Sean Combs after that lawsuit came out?
And so I will say this about the prosecution when they were kind of laying this out to get eventually to Cassie's lawsuit, is they were kind of showing us piece by piece, month by month, all these text exhibits, or we were hearing about these text exhibits. The jury actually saw them, but just about how Jane was uncomfortable by doing these hotel nights, right? But then we get to Cassie's lawsuit, and I was really kind of surprised to hear Jane's reaction while she was on the stand about Cassie's lawsuit. Because even in reference before, where her and Diddy would get in kind of these verbal spats with one another, where Jane would kind of throw out, "I'm no Gina, I'm no Cassie." And so I thought, okay, well, once we get to Cassie's lawsuit, maybe she didn't have the nicest things to say about Cassie in reference to her lawsuit. But as far as Jane is concerned, it was actually the opposite of what I was initially thinking. So when we get to the part about Cassie's lawsuit, Jane was explaining that it was all over the place. I almost fainted. In fact, I think I did. And then Maureen Comia asked, well, why? And she says, because there were 3 specific pages that were just harrowing. And mind you, when Jane's on the stand, she is very soft-spoken. Sometimes when she's like testifying, I'm just kind of like, oh my goodness, I need to hear you a little bit louder. But she's very soft-spoken when she's on the stand. But Jane was explaining that she read the entire complaint, and that she said these pages resembled my own experience. I was bewildered. I was in shock. I couldn't sleep. It felt like a nightmare. And so the jury was able to see an exhibit of Cassie's lawsuit that was filed on November 16th of 2023. Jane said previously she did meet Cassie a couple times, but in passing. She said it was around the 2015-ish time frame. So that's notably when she was when Cassie was still with Diddy. And the two had met at a fashion show and at a Father's Day celebration. But the two never spoke outside of just meeting each other in passing years before she had even filed her lawsuit, that being Cassie. But Jane was saying that she had a lot of sympathy. She says, I can't believe I'm reading my own story. And that was in reference to Jane talking about Cassie's lawsuit. And then this is when she's kind of getting emotional while on the stand, a little choked up here, where Jane was explaining that she texted Diddy after. So we heard about a text message, this from November 17th of 2023. It was between Jane and it was between Diddy. So that was the day after Cassie had filed her lawsuit, but also the same day that lawsuit was settled, but also the same day the federal government opened their investigation into Diddy. So a lot's kind of going on in that day unknowingly to Jane. But the text from Diddy said, SMH, I'm stressed and sad. We're supposed to be on the same page. Jane said, well, how can we both be on the same page? And then she was saying that she had to go to the doctor. And then Jane, a couple days later on November 19th, she said, I've been crying for 3 days. I feel like I'm reading my own sexual trauma. You recently threw me up in a hotel for days. God woke me up from this sick trauma. And again, I'm paraphrasing here. There was a lot more in this message where Jane was explaining, I feel manipulated. This was sexual exploitation. You knew this was coming. You made me feel gaslit. You made me feel crazy. Because also remember around this time, everyone, Jane was texting Diddy that she was starting to feel very uncomfortable doing these hotel nights and felt like that was the only thing that she was being used for. Then Diddy, a couple days after she had sent that message about crying for 3 days, Diddy said, call me on this phone. It's important. So then there was an exhibit that we heard about. It's from November 19th of 2023. It was a file. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe it's an audio note, it's a voice note, but it was a recording of a phone call. And so you hear Diddy picking up this phone, or at least answering on this phone saying hello. And then it's weird because it kind of sounds like they're in a car. It sounds like they're outside. It was kind of weird to at first initially listen to this. And so I'm trying to write down everything that Diddy is saying to her. And he is saying, I'm sorry you feel this way. I know we can't talk on these phones. I called and reached out to you. Sorry you feel this way. It was some kinky shit I thought we both enjoyed. I don't want you to feel this way. I'm not supposed to talk on the phone. And then you can hear Jane saying, I've been crying for 3 days, reading it all for word. But what's interesting, Jesse, is that this was a recorded phone call between Jane and Diddy, but Jane said while she was testifying today, she had no idea she was being recorded. She had no idea. She wasn't the one who hit record. She doesn't know how this particular phone call was recorded, but Diddy's on this recording saying, well, everything we did was mutually together. But I think a big question for me is listening to this audio message. I didn't know if he was talking about Jane or if he was talking specifically about Cassie. And so Jane was saying on this recording, well, I'm just effed up right now. It still bothers me. But then you can hear on this particular audio recording just kind of like, at first I didn't know what that sound was, but then Jane had testified that she heard Diddy writing with a Sharpie and a notepad on this recording. So possibly insinuating that he was taking some notes and writing down what she was saying. And so we hear this on the recording, just kind of the scratching of what she says was like a Sharpie pen onto a notepad. And then Diddy's on this recording saying, well, I'm here to help you. You know what I'm saying? Try and take a deep breath, okay? How can I be there for you? Let's get through this together. This was some kinky fun together. I need you to get some rest, please. And then Jane's on the recording saying, I'm going to pray for you. Then Diddy's on the recording saying, call KK if you need me. And Diddy asked if Jane was recording him, which is ironic given the fact that Jane was the one who was unknowingly being recorded on. And so Diddy was saying, and so Diddy was saying that he can't talk on this phone, and Jane was saying that she had told Diddy that we were just talking about this, that being the sexual traumas that she experienced. And then obviously with Cassie's lawsuit, it really brought out more things. And then Diddy's on this recording saying, well, you bought me the videotape to look at what we do. Can you get some sleep and we'll talk to you later, or later talk to KK. I need your support, please. If you need anything, call. He said, I need your support, please. If you need anything else, call KK. And then Jane and Diddy spoke on the phone that day. We hear another recording from the same day, November 19th of 2023, still same instance where Jane didn't know she was being recorded. And Diddy can be heard on this recording saying, I really need your friendship right now. I called you back to make sure you're breathing. You know, you don't have to worry about nothing else, and nothing else implying about her rent, her financial situation. And then Diddy said, please pray for me. I'll pray for you. I need your friendship. And so it was kind of interesting to hear this. I mean, you know, for us in the press and the media, we've all heard Diddy's voice. I think for the jurors, I'm always wondering what's going on in their head when they're hearing this recording, because as much as, you know, the defendant was a little animated sometimes prior to the judge kind of admonishing him, you really never hear from him. And so I'm wondering all the time when we hear him through his mouth, through his words, allegedly, I'm always wondering what's kind of going through their mind as they're kind of hearing this. Before I even saw them, Jesse, it seemed like they were just kind of listening to all of this listening to this and taking it all in.
Well, I wonder if an argument could be made that will be probably made by the prosecution. He did this purposely because he had consciousness of guilt. He knew the Cassie lawsuit. He knew other people could come forward and say something. And he was basically trying to have her on tape, maybe acting like he didn't know this was being recorded, but having her on tape, taking notes. Everything was consensual. This was just freaky, right? We're all good. You know, I'm here for you. You know, again, that could backfire and be quite problematic in the eyes of the jury. Him recognizing that he needs to get everybody else on the same page to say that nothing bad happened, and that, you know, because he realizes that this could be quite problematic. And it seems to me, because we found out that she was basically with him until weeks before his arrest, she was there for another important event. Didn't she testify that she was there when CNN published the hotel surveillance footage of him purportedly beating up Cassie Ventura, and was also there for his planned response, and was also there I think it came out today, his Instagram apology that he released 2 days after the tape was published by CNN. She was a part of all that, right? She was there for all that.
Yeah, honestly, Jesse, in my notes, when they finally played the apology video that I've been thinking that they were going to play possibly even on day one of trial, I wrote finally, literally finally with 4 exclamation points, because I'm like, when are they going to show the jury this apology video? But yes, around this time, it was May of 2024, CNN released video of the Intercontinental Hotel incident, and Jane was explaining that around this time that she was over at Diddy's home in Miami at 2-Star Island, and that they were just sleeping. Then one of his sons knocked on the door and said something is happening, and so then Diddy leaves kind of the bedroom area where they were laying down. And then Jane ended up taking kind of her phone out to see what was going on. And she said, well, all I saw was Sean assaulting Cassie in a hotel. And then Jane was explaining that she had watched the video that CNN released, and that what ended up happening is Diddy invited Jane into a huddle where they could kind of, from what she was describing it, as kind of like a PR thing. It felt like they were trying to find a way to kind of get out there in front of this, come up with some type of response, and that response ended up being a social media video. But to me, I thought it was interesting just the amount of planning and the drafts that this particular video went through before it was published on Instagram, and then obviously it's no longer there. But Jane was explaining that they were trying to come up with this very sincere apology post. They didn't play the video at this point, but then Jane was explaining that the next day Diddy showed Jane a draft of what he would say. In the draft, I thought this was pretty interesting, is that Diddy did address Cassie by name. I think when the video was actually released, a lot of us were like, notably, he did not say her name, but there's a reason for that, and I'll get to that in just a second. But Diddy was telling Jane about the Cassie video and really kind of going in depth about it in June/July of 2024, and was explaining to Jane that Diddy said that this was the only time that Cassie and Diddy had a physical violent altercation like that, and that Diddy had told Jane that Cassie was actually the hitter in this situation. Obviously, with Cassie's testimony, we know that not to be true, but Jane said that she gave Diddy final feedback on the apology video, and then she went back to LA, and then she saw the apology video, and then we hear the apology video, and the jurors finally see it. It's something that we at Law and Crime have seen a number of times, but I think for the most part it presumably has been the jurors' first time seeing this video. And so then you hear Diddy say, you know, it's so difficult to reflect on the darkest times of your life. My behavior on that video was disgusting. I had to go to therapy. I had to ask God for his mercy and grace. I'm so sorry. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm truly sorry. And then Jane said that she didn't feel this apology was genuine, this particular apology video. And then there was a whole objection from the defense. The jury is dismissed. They're given a break. But then we kind of get into why there was an objection by the defense. And so the government came out and they were like, okay, we'll strike the last part of that answer where Jane was saying that she didn't feel like this apology video was genuine in terms of comparing it to the final draft that was posted versus the draft that she saw, where you do hear Cassie's name. I guess we didn't see that draft, nothing like that. But the draft that actually went out to the public didn't mention Cassie by name. But then the defense chimed in about that, and they were like, well, there was talk about naming Cassie by name. Agnifilo told this to Diddy around this time, because Mark Agnifilo was already Diddy's lawyer by this time. He told us in court today. But Mark Agnifilo was the one who was actually like, do not name Cassie in this apology video. Why? Because she's going to be a grand jury witness, and she likely was a grand jury witness around this time frame. And so the defense was like, well, this entire line of questioning is inappropriate. And the government said, well, this is relevant as it's going in. March of 2024, where she was explaining that she had never saw Cabral again even after this incident. The two had never spoken since then. And so it was kind of interesting, because I remember even just around that time, there was a lot of rumors swirling around that people had videotapes of Diddy and these freak-offs. But according to Jane's testimony, she said that a media company did buy it. But again, we don't know this media company. We don't know who they are, if they were actually going to plan on releasing it. But she was explaining again that she and Cabral never spoke after this particular alleged extortion.
Yeah, I wonder how that fits into the overall charges, maybe to say, you know, there was a lack of consent. There was a lack of her wanting to have these videos or even these videos released. It wasn't so much on Combs as it was on allegedly on somebody else. So it's interesting, you know, they testify about that. I have to say, I think the finances are really interesting. So the idea, right, Sean Combs controls someone's appearance, controls their careers, controls their livelihood. And there was testimony earlier where she talked about how she wanted to do OnlyFans and he discouraged it. The way that I was reading it, it came up again about her earning her own money. Talk to us about this and whether or not this was during a break in their relationship, because I guess the idea would be if she's earning money on her own, that goes to the idea of this is what she could have been doing, but Sean Combs was controlling it. He was controlling her life. He was controlling her finances to get her to do what he wanted. Did she talk about earning her own money?
She did talk about earning her own money. So this was during an off period that the two had. So this was specifically around January of 2024, where Jane said that her finances actually started to pick back up after she created that OnlyFans. And so she was saying that she just wanted to be independent again, and this is why she had created the OnlyFans page, and that Jane said that she also got child support to help with her finances, but that another man too, this man named Bear, sent her money, and that money was $9,000, so just shy of that extra $1,000 to pay for her rent. But the kind of exchange for it is that Jane would pose for Bear's brand, and that she never actually saw this man in person, but that they only communicated through text. And so it seemed like, as far as Jane was concerned, that her finances were picking up. So Jane was explaining by the time that she and Diddy got back together, which was shortly after her birthday of 2024, that Diddy came to LA, she went to Miami, that things started to seem like they were getting back on track. But then Diddy went through Jane's phone and saw these messages from this man named Bear. And so then we hear about this text exhibit from March 7th, 2024, when the two were already back together at this point, where Diddy said, what's going to happen when I come over? Jane said, well, should I get the house ready for us? And Jane thought that Diddy wanted her to have entertainers over. Diddy told Jane that his mom was coming into town this weekend, and Jane thought that he was just using this as an excuse to see other women. Then Diddy was kind of threatening to cut her off a little bit, where Diddy had asked Jane to sign something so that the two could move on, because he told her that, well, she's making her own money and that they hope to have a clean break. And so Jane was saying that she had testified that she told Diddy that she was paying off her debt, that she was unemployed. She said she was penny pinching. She took on credit card loans. She said that all she asked from Diddy was 3 months, and that she told him, you aren't having your way and you bring up my rent. I'm tired of it. You can't even make these 2 years. And those were the 2 years that the two had promised each other under the love contract, where he would essentially pay her rent for a 2-year period. And so Jane was saying, did you tell Robin to cut me off? She texted me that my lease is up in April of 2024. And then it seemed like, from Diddy's point of view, that he was really upset about this Bear interaction, but other interactions too that Jane had had with other men when she and Diddy were no longer together. But it seemed like, from Jane's perspective, even though she was making money on OnlyFans, even though her finances were slowly picking back up, she seems like she still kind of wasn't pulling strings, even as far as kind of making the rent on her own, where she was still asking for money from Diddy. And I feel like that's something that the defense might actually point to, especially as it's still currently going on even today.
Yeah, the timeline of the relationship, the rent, the paying for the lawyer, you know, some of the ways that she vocalized or maybe didn't vocalize her reluctance to this, it's all avenues for the defense to exploit, to say that this is not a clean-cut case of sex trafficking, right? And I wonder if things changed when she started talking about violence. So she had already testified that there were certain times when she physically didn't want to engage in these behaviors, these acts, and she still did them. Was it to make him happy? Did she feel the pressure? But talk to me about the violence, because this was something, the alleged violence, this was something that was previewed by the prosecution in the opening statements. What did she say today about violent encounters she had with Sean Combs, or allegedly had with Sean Combs?
Sippers, Thanks for staying up with me. You're going to be on a late night sip. I got my teacup filled up. I got lemons and oranges in a Georgia sweet peach tea that I brewed over the weekend. I hope you guys are ready for a night filled of catching up on all of the Diddy trial shit. So now we're going to get into more understanding. We've heard, TMZ report and now Sidebar telling us, the tea about how this Jane Doe alleges that, yes, there was violence, okay? Because in the testifying that we heard on the viral visions, we didn't hear any of the violence, but now we are. So get your teacups up. I'm going to fill them up with some tea on Diddy violently assaulting with the Jane Doe. Here we go.
Well, she brought up this date specifically, and that date being June 18th of 2024, a date according to Jane that she'll always remember. And so Jane was saying that she saw Diddy at her apartment, the very apartment where he still pays her rent, and that Diddy was coming back from a family trip from Utah. And then we hear about this exhibit, and an exhibit was shown to the jury and the witness that was of Jonathan, that was Diddy's assistant. And Jane said that Jonathan helped her stock up the fridge, put candles up, put red lights up, because red lights was something that Diddy particularly liked. And so then the jury is shown an exhibit photo of Jane, of herself that night. It's kind of a mirror selfie. I was able to get kind of like a little glimpse of it, but Jane said that she and Diddy were having together time that night. She wasn't expecting to have an entertainer that night, that the two were just going to spend a normal night together. And so then the jury sees exhibit photos of Diddy over at her house. They see exhibits of the photos of the red lights in her house, and Jane is explaining that Sean really liked red lights. And then the jurors also seeing a video of Sean Combs, and weirdly enough, the song Lovely Day was playing in the background. And given what she explained next, it was kind of ominous kind of hearing that particular song. But Jane was explaining after the video that she and Diddy got into an argument, that she and Diddy were not on drugs necessarily during this portion, that the two just had champagne and they had tequila together, and that Jane ended up confronting Diddy on who he was with while he was on this family trip to Utah. And Jane was calling him a pedophile, even though the prosecution had to really kind of point out that Diddy wasn't with someone who was underage, that this girl was just 25 years younger than Diddy, according to Jane, and that this was an adult woman. They had to kind of verify that for the jury. But Jane was saying, well, this girl can't even buy her own drinks, when Diddy and this other woman first started talking. And Jane explained that she pushed Diddy's head onto a counter when he was bending over as he looked like he was about to tie his shoes. And she said, well, I just, as far as how hard she pushed his head down, she said, well, I gave it a good shot. And so then Jane is saying that she threw candles and glass everywhere and telling Diddy, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. And that wax got onto Diddy, and while she was throwing those candles at him, and that Diddy got angry. He was calling her crazy. And then Jane said she tried to leave the kitchen to go to the primary bedroom, or the master bedroom, as she calls it, and that she was telling Diddy just to leave. Jane ended up locking the bedroom door. He kicked that open. She locked herself in the primary bathroom. He kicked that open off the hinges. Jane said she went into her walk-in closet. He kicked that door down too. So Jane went into the hallway, about to leave out of the front door. But while she was in that closet, Jesse, she explained that she changed clothes. But I think an interesting point where she said she changed clothes was she said that she put on like a kind of a baggy dress and some heels on. And she said that while she was back in the hallway trying to leave out of the front door, that Diddy ended up kicking her and then put her in a chokehold. And she said, I couldn't breathe. I was on my tippy toes. And that she ended up kind of squirming her way out of his grip. And she said, I just wanted to run and get away from him. And so she ended up hiding behind this wall 6 blocks away from her house, barefoot, because remember, as I said, she was in heels for a little bit. And she said that she was just barefoot in a dress, and she said, I just needed myself. I needed to get away. So she didn't even have a phone on her when she had left. She didn't have her ID on her. She had nothing on her but her person, according to her testimony. And she said she hid for about 2 hours, or what felt like 2 hours to her. And she said when she turned the corner to head back towards her apartment, she said, I saw Sean walking toward me. And Jane said that she went into the guest bedroom of her home. Diddy kicked that door in too. She kept throwing glasses and candles at him, and that Jane and Diddy both ended up on the patio. And she says, I just remember that I punched him and he punched me, but Diddy had no injuries. Jane was explaining that she just kind of curled up into a ball at this point while she's outside on the patio on the ground. And she said that Diddy ended up punching her in the head more than once, and that she was just trying to cover her head as far as why she was balled up kind of in the grassy area, and that Diddy punched her and he kicked her multiple times. And Diddy said something along the lines to Jane that she had testified to. He said, that you're trying to take me away from my family. And then Diddy grabbed Jane by her arm and her hair and dragged her back into the house. And Jane said that she called the woman that Diddy was last on this, I guess, Utah trip with, using Diddy's phone during this kind of argument, during this violent encounter. And Jane was explaining that she was just angry and she was fuming, and that during this phone call, Diddy held her down as the other woman just said like very insulting things to her. And Jane had told this woman, shut up, he's beating my behind. And Diddy had FaceTimed Jonathan, the assistant, afterwards and said, well, tell this girl I wasn't with no girl on this family trip. And that's what Diddy had allegedly told Jonathan, the assistant. And so Jane said that she had 2 golf ball sized knots on her forehead. She had a black eye that was starting to form, and that she went into the shower afterwards, and that Diddy kept smacking her while in the shower. He was fully clothed, however she was not. And Jane ended up calling him a bitch. And so even after this, you would think that would kind of be the end, that the two would maybe go their separate ways that night. But she had explained that even after this, that Diddy just told her to put ice on it and put an outfit on. And that outfit, she thought it meant lingerie and high heels, and that's what she did. And even after the assault, Diddy used her phone to play pornography. And then they texted an escort named Anton using Jane's phone, and Diddy had texted Anton using Jane's phone saying, hey, what are you doing? And then Diddy scrolled up and saw earlier messages from Anton about this mutual friend and this Vegas trip where they had. And then Jane was explaining, well, next thing I know, I had to go to my car door to open the gate for Anton, because I guess the clicker for the gate was inside her car. And the jury is shown a photo of Anton's contact number in Jane's phone. Jane says that Diddy told her, we aren't going to end the night like this. And so she ended up covering her bruises and the knots on her forehead, the knots with her hair and the bruises with makeup. And it's interesting because that's kind of similar to what Cassia testified to, as far as just what she had did to cover up the injuries that she sustained too during her relationship with Diddy. But then Anton ends up arriving to Jane's apartment. Then Jane and Diddy went to another room. Diddy confronted Jane about these messages between herself and Anton as far as this mutual friend, which was an unnamed rapper, and that Diddy accused Jane of cheating on him and all this other stuff. But ultimately what ended up happening is that she just took an ecstasy pill and she ended up performing oral sex on the entertainer named Anton. And she said it felt like forever, that she felt like she wasn't in her own body when she was doing this, and she felt disgusted and terrible, and that Jane didn't even tell Anton about the earlier violence, but he ended up leaving. And then she and Diddy kind of continued. He was accusing her of cheating, all this stuff, and that what ended up happening was that that Jane was given money to pay for Anton, but also money to fix her doors, and that $3,000 or $4,000 went to Anton in an Uber, which is something that I guess you can do. You can send packages of money in an Uber to an entertainer, and that's what she ended up doing. And then she kept kind of the remainder of that, and it was supposed to go to fixing the doors on her apartment after they broke, but what ended up happening is she used it for other funds too. And so that was really just kind of the big gist of what had happened on June 18th of just last year. This happened very recently, if you put it into context, just a year ago.
And there were photos of these broken doors that were shown to the jury?
Yep, there were a lot of photos shown to the jury. So they saw the package money being sent to Anton on June 19th of 2024. Then they saw the Uber because she was trying to take a picture of the license plate. And then they did see an email from Jane to this company to repair the doors. Those were from August 27th of 2024, and in that email were the attachments of the various different kind of photos of just all the different doors that were broken or taken off their hinges or destroyed, pretty much, that according to her still haven't been fixed even to this day.
Yeah, this is, again, a complicated situation because I understand the testimony to be she claimed, Combs said to her basically along the lines of, take this bleeping pill, you're not going to ruin my bleeping night, go out there and bleep, and claims, she said to him, I didn't want to do it. She ends up doing it. You could argue that seems to be more the clearer cut case of potential sex trafficking, but it's complicated by the fact she said, a few days later, she missed him, right? She missed him. And it goes to those complicated avenues of what is that relationship between, again, just taking the allegations as true, an abuser and a victim, which I understand there was even discussion today about whether Dr. Dawn Hughes, a forensic psychologist who testified earlier in the trial, whether or not she'll have to be recalled to maybe explain some of this. Elizabeth, before we wrap things up, how did their relationship end? When was the last time that she saw him? And I understand we learned a little bit about more her connection to this case and what brought her to testify.
Yeah, so I was kind of waiting to hear from the prosecution that she was the woman that was in the hotel whenever Diddy got arrested, but we never got to that point because the last time she saw Diddy in person was in August of 2024, and that Diddy had told her to invite Dawn over for a hotel night. So even as late as August of 2024, she was still doing these hotel nights or wild debauchery nights. And so the jury is shown an exhibit, this being from September 9th of 2024, is a text between Diddy and Jane. And Jane said, well, whoever you're with can do it. And she was talking about Diddy asking her to send a sexually explicit video. And remember how I was saying around this time when Diddy had made his trip back to New York, whenever he was over in his hotel before he got arrested, that HSI saw like women's bags inside his hotel room. And so Jane was kind of saying, well, whoever you're with inside wherever you are here in New York, that you can get that sexually explicit video from her. But I thought what was interesting is that, so Diddy is arrested in September of 2024. Jane was subpoenaed in November of 2024, but she said she never spoke with prosecutors even before that. So from November of 2024 until January of 2025, she didn't have any other meetings with them. Jane was explaining that she had been in therapy for the last 3 months, and that Diddy still pays for her rent and even the current lawyer that she has. And so Jane was explaining that she did have meetings with Diddy's attorneys. And I thought what was interesting is that she told the defense attorneys first about what had happened on June 18th of 2024 before even telling prosecutors about this incident. And so she said she didn't even reveal this anything about this violent incident until April of 2025, so just a couple months ago. And she said that she was still processing that night. And so Jane said that at first she felt obligated to meet with Diddy's attorneys based on her relationship with him. And honestly, from what I could feel while she was on the witness stand. I felt like she felt possibly, and I'm presuming this or assuming this, that she seems like she's still in love with him in some type of aspect. And I think that's something maybe the defense will really point out when they cross-examine her tomorrow. But she was even asked in the final line of questioning, how do you feel about Diddy? Something that other people have testified to as well, including Cassie. But as far as Jane is concerned, Jane said that she prays for his continued healing and for peace for him. And she didn't say as far as I still love him, I miss him. She didn't say any of that. And I thought at this particular moment where she said that I pray for his continued healing and peace for him, that she would turn and look at him, or just look at him in the eye, or just something. And we never saw that from what I could see of Jane, even while she was testifying. For the most part today, she kept her head down, rarely even looked at AUSA Marine Comey when she was asking her questions. And so I thought for that moment, okay, maybe she might look at him directly. Maybe there would be some type of, look. And we didn't see that at all. She really just kind of kept her head down, even just saying that.
That time frame is interesting because it explains the superseding indictment. It explains why she was added and how she was added and when she was added to it. But it almost feels like not a reluctant witness, but not a typical victim in a sex trafficking case who would testify and talk about the torment of your abusers and what it was like. I say a classic example would be somebody who was kidnapped by this organization and sex traffic, was and shipped off to different clients, and maybe was rescued by authorities and now testifying against the perpetrator of the sex trafficking ring. You're not getting that. Doesn't mean that they're not hitting points for the prosecution, but you wonder how beneficial this witness was for the prosecution's case. Sex trafficking, maybe not. Transportation to engage in prostitution, I think she definitely helped support that, literally paying, transporting sex workers and herself for prostitution purposes across different cities. Probably that supports it, but I will be very curious to see where the cross-examination goes, for sure. Elizabeth Milner, thank you so much, and really, really great reporting as always.
All right, Sipper. So that was some sidebar with Law and Crime. What do you guys think? Okay, drop your thoughts in the chat as we continue to catch up on everything going on from the 15th day of the trial until currently. Let's see.
Hey, I really don't know what's going on with you, but I just want to just give you a heads up that I'm about to really disappear on you. You feel me?
Diddy accuser Jane has taken the stand.
Here we have some voice messages to Jane Doe, one of Diddy's ex-girlfriends that have been testifying. As soon as my computer catches up to our stream. So Jane Doe, she really did say a lot to give us insight to however, her relationship carried on with Diddy. I see them, throwing mud, trying to make something stick that could actually tie into the RICO. A lot of us are not seeing it quite yet, of how they can actually convict Diddy in a RICO. Like I said, question down in the front of the thumbnail. Is Diddy in the right court? Should he be in state court, or is he in the right court, be it in a federal court? We're going to listen to some text voicemails and all that good stuff of Diddy between him and Jane Doe. Whenever my computer catches up to the stream. Thank you guys so much for sipping tea with Tanisha late night.
Maybe hurting it. Let's break down some of the top moments for you right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, this is another Law and Crime legal alert. If you received Depo-Provera birth control shots and were later diagnosed with a brain or spinal tumor called meningioma, you may be eligible for arguably the second most important witness so far in Sean Combs' criminal trial. It seems prosecutors hope that her testimony will support transportation to engage in prostitution, sex trafficking, and the racketeering charges. But here are the questions. What were the strengths of her testimony? What's going to help the prosecution? But also, what were the weaknesses? In other words, what can the defense use to their advantage? I want to talk about it. And to be clear, she's still testifying, okay? So this is a breakdown of what we've heard so far. Everything could change as she continues her testimony. But for this, let me bring on criminal law attorney, former prosecutor Melba Pearson to talk more about this. Melba, so good to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Great to be with you again, Jesse.
Generally speaking, before we get into the specifics, how do you think Jane is coming off so far?
So let's be very clear. I believe survivors, all of that. And she did have some very, very heartbreaking aspects to her story. She kind of gives a mixed bag. So in some ways, she substantiates and bolsters the credibility of some of the other witnesses that have testified. She's definitely kind of reinforced the dark aspects of being in Diddy's world and all of the awful things that he does to people, and is clearly not a one-off, right? Because of the fact that she talked about so many different horrible things that she had to endure. But on the flip side, I think there's some questions about her credibility, not in terms of did this happen, but how much of this was coercion and how much of this was her choosing to stay for a better lifestyle. And again, I mean, these types of cases are very complicated. And, you know, when you think about domestic violence, a lot of people don't think about, you know, emotional abuse. They don't think about financial abuse and things like that. But again, you know, there's some of her testimony did smack me wrong. So I don't, it's going to be a mixed bag.
Let me tell you this. What you just outlined is kind of what I have been wondering myself, and wondering if the prosecution needed her for this case. But let me explain where I think she actually has done well for the prosecution. I'm going to get to sex trafficking in a little, but I got to say, I think she is really helping to prove transportation to engage in prostitution, that charge. And she makes up one of the specific charges. I think it's count 5 in the indictment. By the way, this carries up to 10 years in prison, so it's a serious federal charge. But it is literally the accusation that Combs allegedly transported sex workers and Jane in interstate and foreign commerce on multiple occasions with the intent that they engage in prostitution. I don't believe there is a force, fraud, or coercion element that's necessary. It's basically transporting people for sex work, okay? Here's a little bit of a back and forth from the transcript from last week. Question: about how many of those times that you saw Sean in person between May of 2021 and October of 2023 did you end up having a hotel night? Which, in other words, is kind of like these debauchery nights. They're similar to the freak-off nights. Okay. Answer: every single time I saw Sean. Okay, so she testified that Combs would arrange her travel. This was through assistance, that he paid for it, that she saw Combs hand cash to the male performers. She also testified that his security or assistants, like his purported chief of staff, Christina Coram, would give him cash. She testified that she helped to pick the performers, even arranged the flights of at least one male performer from Atlanta to New York. And she allegedly paid him $2,000 to $4,000. She claims she got the money from Combs. She testified how Combs arranged performers to come over too. She testified that the assistants had set up the rooms. So Melba, from this charge alone, do you think her testimony supports that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I say it's a mixed bag, because she definitely did give some things to the prosecution in terms of showing that she was flying all over the country to engage in these freak-off/hotel nights, that it was at Diddy's request and direction, that, again, that this wasn't something, even though coerciveness and fraud and force are not necessarily required, again, when you look at it in the totality of the circumstances, sum and substance, nobody wanted to be there, right? The performers were there because they were paid. The women were there because they were in a relationship in some way, shape, or form with Diddy and thought that they were in a loving relationship, and it turns out they were really being abused. So I think it adds a lot to the general context, as well as substantiating each of these charges. So for sure, she gives the prosecution that.
Well, Melba, if she's testifying about how she helped arrange hotel nights as a surprise for Sean, that was a part of her testimony, I believe. Can he say, hey, listen, I wasn't a part of all this? Or even if he agreed, is it still prostitution? You know, there was an argument that I'm paying these people for their time and experience, and maybe they could say I had them come over to dance and perform, and then one thing led to another. Or is this, again, I still feel like this is the most straightforward charge, but is there a way for him to even wiggle out of this?
No. Money for sex equals prostitution. And if there's no other way around it. And if you're paying these workers, whether it's him doing it directly, whether it's him having an intermediary do it, you're still directing it, right? So at the end of the day, money for sex equals prostitution. He can't get around that. There's nothing he can do.
Let me ask you this. Aside from the men getting paid, right? If she, and this is what she testified to, that she got her rent paid by Sean Combs, that he was giving her gifts like a love bracelet, that he was giving her cash. Is she the commercial aspect? Is she getting paid and flown around for sex work?
Realistically, yes. But the flip side of it is that I don't think she went into it with that arrangement in mind. So in her mind, she thought she was in a relationship. In his mind, I mean, who can really tell if it was a relationship or he was using her as a sex worker or a hybrid thereof. But it's not that straightforward that, okay, we're having a commercial transaction, you and I, you give me money, I give you XYZ in return. It didn't seem to be that kind of relationship. She talked about, I was in love with him and we had all these beautiful nights together, and I got upset when he was flying some other woman around on a private jet and wouldn't take me to the Turks and Caicos, that sort of thing. So to me, that takes away the commercial sex work aspect as in terms of intentionality. She did not intend to be a sex worker. That's not what she came to the table to do. She thought she was getting a boyfriend.
Okay, now let me move on to the most controversial charge, sex trafficking. Force, fraud, coercion. Force, fraud, coercion to induce Jane into performing commercial sex acts. That's the allegation. This is the mixed bag, even more so that I think you're talking about. So the travel component could arguably be established if this all happen in all different places. But it's really about the non-consensual aspect. She testified how Combs was dismissive of her request that the men wear condoms, and how he even became upset that she was afraid of speaking up because he would become agitated. She testified that on at least one occasion when she was exhausted because of these allegedly prolonged sex sessions, hours upon hours, Combs allegedly said to her, "You're not getting tired on me, are you?" And something along the lines of, "Let's finish strong," or "Let's end on a high note." She claimed that after she threw up in one session, he allegedly said to her, "That's good. You'll feel better now that you've thrown up, so let's go." And then she was allegedly directed to have sex with a third man that time. That he allegedly got disgusted at her for crying. That when she tried to speed things up with the other men, in an effort to, what she says, basically get it over with, he would tell her to slow things down. She testified that she told Combs that she didn't want to engage in this in certain ways, including through text messages. She apparently wrote to him how the debauchery or hotel nights were, quote, "the only reason you have me around and pay for the house," and that she was doing things that make me disgusted with myself. "I don't want to keep feeling like that." And she encouraged him that they should talk like adults and figure out where we're going from here. "I don't want to feel obligated to perform these nights for you." Combs apparently replied at one point, "Girl, stop." There were more sexually explicit messages where she complained how she's only being used to perform certain sex acts on other men. She also claims Combs gave her drugs like ecstasy to keep her awake for these sex sessions, although I think there is a question whether it was voluntarily taken or not. And you wonder if the acts themselves, right, sex acts with other men, one even apparently lasting 3.5 days, the jury could be saying, how on earth could all of this really be consensual? Melba, I'll get to the weaknesses or the potential weaknesses in her testimony. That alone, and if there's anything I miss, please add, but that alone, is that force, fraud, coercion?
Argument can be made that it is, on top of the fact that he is paying her bills, and made it very clear, I believe in one part of the testimony, he allegedly said something along the lines of, "I'm on my job," meaning with the inference being, I'm paying for your bills, or, for your rent.
You're talking about a voice note that came out.
Correct. Yes, the voice note where he it said, "I'm on my job, you need to get on yours." The implication being, I pay your bills, therefore you need to do what you need to do to make me happy, which includes these freak-offs. So it's one of those things where she kept talking about how she was a single mom. She didn't know where she and her son were going to be able to go. And, so from that perspective, she felt coerced because she was either going to be out on the street or she had to do these disgusting things. So there is definitely an argument to be made about the coercion aspect. Force is going to be a little bit harder from that standpoint, because I think for Cassie, the force is much stronger, because obviously there was physical brutality. We saw the tape over and over again. And so definitely the force argument is stronger with Cassie. I don't think the force is as strong with Jane, but I think the coercion is definitely there. Fraud, I don't think there's much fraud there. I think it's mostly we're hanging our hat on coercion.
Remember, we're in the crux of her testimony. If you base it on the opening statement, there is violence to come. That's what I'm imagining we're going to get to. So again, it's a little bit, we're getting into this based on her 2 days of testimony, or day and a half of testimony. We'll see where it goes. Here's the problem. There are many things that the defense may jump on. And to be clear, again, at the time of this recording, the defense hasn't even begun their cross-examination. So what were some of the weaker points in her testimony? Okay, a lot of her testimony was about how she did things to make her partner happy. That when she said she couldn't perform because she was on her period, she claims Combs accused her of lying, called her weird, but as far as I remember, I don't hear anything about her being forced to still go through with it. Like being thrown into a room and said, I don't care, have sex with this guy on your period. She talked about setting up some of these events. She talked about that she chose the workers. Again, she said it was to please Sean Combs, but apparently she had a role in who was selected. She wrote sexually explicit messages to sex workers and Combs. She claims to turn him on. That she was with him up until his arrest, with a last hotel night in August of 2024, so just weeks before he was taken into custody. She claimed that he is still paying her rent and that the only thing she really enjoyed about the hotel nights was being with Sean. How she was essentially just putting on a good show for him, disconnecting when performing. Melba, is this enough? Is this enough to show a lack of consent, or does the jury need more? Did it feel like she was just getting upset that she wasn't getting a more alone time with him? Or is she testifying as a victim of sex trafficking? I know this is not the classic example of sex trafficking, but what do you think? Are those problems in her testimony?
Again, the key is going to be the prosecution is going to have to give the closing argument of life, okay? Because they really need to weave this together for the jury, for them to have a better understanding, because again, I think a lot of this would smack the average juror wrong. I mean, when you have Jane talking about how Diddy paid her rent and was giving her 10 grand a month just for expenses, and then she turns around and says that was not enough for her to be able to furnish her house and live in a comfortable manner, that she needed to go into debt and open 3 more credit cards. I think that aspect, I think it would put the jury off, especially if you have a jury of average New Yorkers who, you know, working, trying to do everything they can to make ends meet, and would love to have an extra 10 grand free and clear every single month to be able to, you know, pay their bills, go on vacation, or do something. So I think some of those aspects made her look like she wanted to be in the scene and she just didn't like the price that she had to pay. I think there's a definite argument to be for that by the
Do you think it's a problem that she was with them up until last year and is now testifying against him? Because again, it's not like the classic sex trafficking case where, oh my gosh, someone was kidnapped, you know, was shipped off for sex trafficking, authorities rescue her, she testifies again. This is different.
Yeah. And again, it's really getting back to Dr. Hughes's testimony in terms of the complicated relationships, in terms of domestic violence relationships. The dynamics are so strange and are foreign to most of us, right? Because you're like, if somebody's forcing me to, or telling me I need to have sex with multiple men while I'm recovering from a yeast infection or a urinary tract infection, you know, most people are thinking, the average person will be like, no, I'm not going to do that. You need to go somewhere else with that foolishness. So I think hearkening back to Dr. Hughes's testimony would be the best play for the prosecution to kind of explain why she even continued to sleep with him all the way, or be in these situations all the way up until 2024.
Do you think Dr. Hughes will have to be recalled? There was a little bit of discussion this morning about whether that's a possibility. Again, she is a forensic psychologist who talks about the complicated relationship between a victim and an abuser, and why they stay in touch, and why they might behave in ways that look inconsistent with being abused, but there are different explanations for it. I'll give you an example. I was wondering, do you think Jane vocalized her lack of consent enough for legal purposes, as opposed to, I hate to say it like this, but I wonder if this is how the defense is going to characterize it, a disgruntled girlfriend, right? She talked about giving subtle clues at times that she didn't want to do something. And when she did it feel like she was upset she didn't get alone time with him, or she's being victimized? I'll give you an example. This is from the transcript. Do you have an estimate of about how many times you told Sean that you did not want to keep having these hotel nights? I don't have an estimate, but I know I definitely wasted, in a sense, of mostly text messages. Jane, between May 2021 and October 2023, did you try to bring this up with Sean over the phone and in person? Yes. Once or more than once? More than once. And each time, did he react essentially the same way? How did he react? Just upset, defensive, belittling, dismissive? Melba, again, do you think Dr. Dawn Hughes has to be recalled to explain this? And did Jane, in your opinion, based on the testimony so far, did she vocalize her lack of consent enough to put Sean Combs on notice and to make it clear that he was sex trafficking her, or allegedly sex trafficking her?
So to answer the second question first, I think she vocalized her displeasure and lack of consent enough. Because I think it just felt like she said it 10 different ways from sunrise, whether it was a text message, whether it was phone calls, him ceasing to speak to her for like 3 weeks or something along those lines, after she said that, this is problematic, et cetera, et cetera. So his reactions to what she said made it clear that he heard her loud and clear and did not like what she had to say. So I think from a legal's perspective, yes, she had clearly said that I don't want to do this. Now, the fact that she kept doing it, separate discussion, but she always said that this was not something she wanted to do. This is not the relationship she wanted to have. Talking about the Pandora's box, like I feel like I opened Pandora's box and now this is the only basis of our relationship and there's nothing else. She made it clear this is not what she wanted to do. So I think that part is very clear. Now, in recalling Dr. Hughes, I'm on the fence. I almost feel like if I was a prosecutor, I would have waited to call Dr. Hughes, knowing the types of testimony that was to come, because of course you knew what order pretty much you were going to call the witnesses in. So if you knew you had multiple girlfriends who had similar experiences, then you kind of wait and have Dr. Hughes come and explain all of the behaviors in one fell swoop, rather than bringing her on to explain Cassie's behavior and then try to recall her for the narrow purpose and have to fight with the defense.
First of all, they had to get Cassie on the stand immediately because she was about to give birth.
Of course,
They had to do that. I think there's something to say now the jury knows where Dr. Hughes is coming from in that mindset. Then you call Jane as opposed to after. They're already primed for it in a way. So I hear you, but I think that's another way of looking at it. Look, I wonder also how granular the jury's going to be, and I don't know if this is even necessarily a question of whether Jane was credible or not, as opposed to maybe other witnesses who testified, because there were opportunities for her to make it sound much worse, to make it more of a clear-cut case of force or fraud or coercion. She didn't. For example, she testified how she didn't really want to have sex with this guy that Combs brought over, who she claimed was sweaty and he smelled, and how Combs seemingly tried to encourage it, and that Combs ended up having sex with her as the guy was hovering over her, and then he excuses him and brings somebody else in. I mean, to really make it sound worse, and if she really was, what the defense maybe will say is, oh, she's only out to get Diddy, she could have said, oh, he forced me against my will to have sex with him. And that, I didn't quite get that. I mean, it's pretty disturbing to say the least. You're on the guy you don't want to be with and he's hovering over you. It doesn't take away from that. And you go back to something else that I wanted to mention as well. Whether manipulation and financial control are elements of sex trafficking, right? So when she complained about being used for sex, Combs apparently responded in a text that she was throwing sex in my face and saying, let's just be friends. She apparently responds, I don't throw sex in your face constantly, but these nights require everything out of me for 30, 40 hours straight. I figure on my birthday, you would switch it up on me. You're making me feel used right now, and now you're breaking up with me? And then about financial control, she claimed that Combs paid her rent, discouraged her from making her own money through OnlyFans. So, you're talking about financial control, alleged manipulation, and then allegedly controlled her appearance, including paying for her to get veneers because he didn't like her teeth, that he wanted her to get piercings, which apparently she did. She claims she actually developed an infection as a result of it. So the financial control, the alleged manipulation, the control of appearance, these are the opening paragraphs of the government's indictment. When they talk about how Combs engaged in a pattern of abusing women and forcing them into sex acts as part of racketeering, do you think that those are compelling aspects of her testimony?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, like I said, the elements are there. It's just a matter of getting past some of the distasteful aspects as well as some of the things that might be perturbing and feel counter to human nature, right? But it's all there. It's all textbook in terms of making sure that she had no way to escape, that she didn't have her own money stashed away or anything like that to be able to be like, you know what? No, I'm moving on. He's making sure to control all of that, which is classic domestic violence. And that's also factors into the whole coercion aspect, because again, if you don't have any other options and he's forcing you to do something you would want to do, there we are. So I think those aspects are going to be strong for the prosecution.
And, you know, she texted him apparently complaining that she hadn't seen him alone outside of a hotel room or a hotel night. And Combs apparently responded, well, get over it, please. Look at the roof over your head and that pretty smile. I don't want to do anything if that's still an issue. So something to think about there. Okay, let's put sex trafficking to the side. Now I want to talk about racketeering. So for racketeering, it's essentially Combs allegedly operated a criminal enterprise using his business and his staff to commit crimes and cover them up in this systematic abuse of women that went on for years. And the prosecution needs to prove at least two underlying crimes: sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, possession and distribution of narcotics and controlled substances. Take your pick. Well, Melba, the assistants, the security, allegedly setting up hotel rooms, the travel, carrying cash, his former chief of staff, Christina Coram, helping with Jane's piercing. Has Jane's testimony about this, does it help with that element of racketeering?
I think it does. I think it does, because the drug use, because remember, she didn't get the drugs herself. It was always Diddy or his team that got her the drugs and all of that. So you've got the drug trafficking. And again, you've got all the aspects of moving around in order to do these hotel nights, which again lends itself to sex trafficking. So I think that she helps. Now, is she the linchpin in the prosecution's case in terms of proving racketeering? No. But she is one building block by, again, showing the depths to which Christina Coram was engaged in all of these acts, and in terms of orchestrating and managing and all of that, and her level of awareness, and how much Diddy's organization was involved in each of these aspects on a day-to-day basis, which again, it's harder to argue that this is not racketeering because you're involving your company in your day-to-day personal life in this matter. It's not just, okay, yeah, I'm getting a flight for you and your girlfriend. It's, I'm getting a flight for sex workers to come to do a freak off. You can't tell me that they don't know what's going on, right? So clearly he's using his businesses, he's using his employees to be able to further these hotel nights, these freak offs and all of that. So again, I think you have it there. But at the end of the day, I think the prosecution already has RICO from Kid Cudi, from the blowing up of the car, because that's arson, and Capricorn Clark, because he held a gun to her head and told her she couldn't leave, which is armed kidnapping. So everything else to me at this juncture is gravy.
No, it's a good point. Yeah, I think the more the better, right? The more the better that they sell. They
love gravy.
The jury options, right? Give the jury options for predicate crimes. But let's talk about that. So in terms of the underlying predicate crimes, we already discussed sex trafficking, put that to the side. But here's one. Jane testified that these hotel nights were like work. Is that forced labor or no? Because she's not necessarily an employee.
She's not an employee, yeah. So I don't think it's forced labor. I think you get forced labor.
I thought it might have been a stretch.
Clark, yeah, Capricorn Clark and
David James.
Right. You remember when one of the security guards told him, you know what rhymes with tired? Fired. So
and Mia. So if you're saying this is his assistant that he allegedly sexually assaulted, yeah, I could see that might support forced labor. Okay, let me ask you this. Drug offenses. You need co-conspirators for racketeering conspiracy. So Jane testified how assistants would bring drugs and security would bring drugs. She testified that she carried drugs. She transported drugs for Combs from LA to Miami, that Christina Coram allegedly helped arrange this too. That's co-conspirators for the drug offenses, the underlying drug offenses for racketeering?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Without a question to me, because again, they knew what they were doing. They went, they got the drugs, not for themselves, but at the behest of Diddy in some way, shape or form, whether it was Diddy directly saying it or Diddy telling Christina and Christina going ahead and telling them to do it. But regardless, it came through the organization from the top. The order is get cocaine or get ecstasy or ketamine or whatever it is, because there's a freak off, there's a hotel night, whatever the case may be. So yeah, that's done.
Let me wrap this up in conclusion with this, Melba. Let me ask you, in conclusion, after arguably problematic witnesses like Brianna Bangolan, whose story of getting dangled off a 17-story balcony had been really seemingly countered with digital evidence, travel receipts, her own problematic text messages, Mia, too, who claimed that she was sexually assaulted by Combs, but then wrote him these loving messages. And again, there's always another side. There's always a way to explain trauma and why people might stay in touch with the people who abuse them or write loving messages. There's always an alternative explanation. Not the cleanest case for the prosecution, not the cleanest witnesses for the prosecution. Having said all that, after they testified, as of right now, and there's more testimony to go, is Jane the best witness to call to prove their case?
I don't think she was the best, but the reality is, when you're putting together a case of this magnitude and of this scale, you're going to have a mixed bag of witnesses. You're going to have some strong ones. You're going to have some amazing ones who are really going to bring the case home for you. And you're going to have some that might be a little bit of, again, they give you a little bit, but they not exactly the best. But the reality is, very rarely do you have a trial where your witnesses are a nun, a priest, and a rabbi, right? The reality is, it's people, and I've said this in closing arguments a bunch of times, like, be great to bring the Pope in, right? But the Pope is generally not going to be a witness to certain types of things. It's going to be the people that are in the mix. And sometimes your best witness is a drug dealer. Sometimes your best witness is, a sex worker, whatever the case may be, just because you don't particularly like them, the way they live their life, or whatever the case may be, does not mean they're not telling the truth, does not mean they're not credible witnesses. So you got to work with the hand you're dealt, and I think the prosecution is doing the best they can with what they have. I will say one thing, though, in terms of the Breonna testimony, because I came away at the end of her testimony like, yeah, the defense did a really great job on cross, but when they brought that expert in that brought up the text message that was a deleted text message from Cassie in real time saying, hey, something horrible happened. I didn't actually see it, but I think he dangled somebody off the balcony. I got to get away. I think that actually rehabilitated Breonna's testimony to an extent. So there's also...
We could have a separate conversation because they said that the metadata from the photos of her injuries indicated those photos were taken before the attack, that Combs was not in LA when this was going on. Again, what did Cassie see or hear versus, actually seeing or hearing herself? You could also make the argument, since they're not the cleanest of witnesses, it shows their credibility. Like I said, if they really wanted to get Combs, make it sound worse. I don't know, complicated situation. Melba Pearson, great seeing you. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching. Remember to show your support by liking, subscribing, and sharing. It's a blessing. Keep your teacups filled and ready for my next upload. Until then, stay inspired and remember, always stay dipping.